this time, the Boston Planning and Development Agency is hosting public meetings in a hybrid setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. Hybrid means that our board meetings are conducted in person at City Hall, in our boardroom on the 9th floor, and virtually via Zoom and Boston City TV. For more information and updates, visit bostonplans.org. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communication, at Xfinity Channel 26, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 962. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. Now, if there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please kindly identify yourself now. Okay, seeing none. Lastly, we request your assistance in helping us reduce conversational noise streaming from the hallways. If everyone would be so mindful as to move away quietly when they leave the boardroom and wait until they are farther away from the doors to continue their conversations, that would be sincerely appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so I will begin with the roll call of members. Ms. Bennett.
Present.
Mr. Shepherd.
Present.
Mr. O'Malley.
Present.
And the chair, I am present. Okay, item number 1. Request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the December 12th, 2024 board meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to amend the lease between the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, doing business as Boston Planning and Development Agency, and Mass Robotics, Inc., to add Suite 301 and remove Suites 502 and 504 at 12 Channel Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mass Robotics has been a tenant in 12 Channel Street since 2016. Their business models, they provide workspace for innovative robotics and automation startup companies. The model is very similar to that of a WeWork, where they charge a fee for the use of the premises by the startup companies. The lease has been amended 4 times since 2016 to accommodate expansion and contraction within 12 Channel Street. They currently lease 51,000 square feet in 4 separate suites within the building, consisting of two non-contiguous suites on the 5th floor, one 1,700 square feet and another 14,000 square feet, as well as the entire 2nd floor consisting of two separate suites totaling 35,000 square feet for brevity. 12 Channel Street is suffering from significant vacancies with the recent departure of East West Manufacturing, 2 suites totaling 45,000 square feet, and the pending vacancy by Global Protection Corporation, who will be vacating 3 suites totaling 68,000 square feet. Staff is in the process now of aggressively marketing the building and reshuffling the deck within the building to make it more marketable. Mass Robotics had previously expressed an interest in the now vacant 3rd floor space, which was vacated by East West Manufacturing. However, the cost to add the entire floor to the lease premises, was cost prohibitive. In late 2024, staff approached Mass Robotics with a proposal to lease the entire 3rd floor and vacate the 5th floor portions to allow BPDA to recapture those spaces. Generally speaking, smaller spaces are more marketable than an entire floor within the building, so we think the odds are better to lease the smaller spaces. And we had a tenant willing to take the 3rd floor, so it was it made sense to act on it. This proves to be mutually beneficial in that Mass Robotics benefits from operating efficiencies with now 2 contiguous floors that they will have in their entirety, and the planning department can now go to market with suites that are less complicated to lease. The planning department crafted a proposal to incentivize Mass Robotics to vacate the 5th floor and move to the 3rd floor. The economics of the transaction are in the memo and the term sheet, but summarized for the public record as follows. Mass Robotics currently pays between $20 and $26 per square foot, depending on the suite that they occupy. We believe that in this current market, and we've done significant market analysis to this end, that the market rate for upper floor industrial space in 12 Channel is currently $17 to $19 a foot. The proposed new lease premises consists of 2 entire floors totaling 69,000 square feet. This modest increase in size was palatable to the Mass Robotics board in that it's a net increase of 18,000 square feet, not the 35,000 square feet. while the initial rate over the next 12 months looks comparatively low, it starts at below $8 a foot, it's important to point out the following. The planning department is not contributing to the cost of the relocation within the building. We're also not contributing to the cost to build out the space for Mass Robotics. And very importantly, we're not paying a real estate commission. There was no real estate broker involved in this transaction. Were there an outside broker involved, the fee would have probably exceeded $250,000, given the size of the third floor. So we were able to avoid that fee. And the rent reverts back to the current market rate in January 2026. So after a year, it's up to $19, and then it keeps going up. So it's short-term pain. The pain is short-lived, but staff forecasts a net increase of about 15% in total revenue to the agency once over the next 7 years of the existing lease with Mass Robotics. So there'll be an immediate dip in revenue, but we'll make up for it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a lease agreement with Boston Balloon Events and the Confetti Company LLC for use of the Suite 504 at 12 Channel Street in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for a period of 3 years with 2 one-year term options commencing January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2027. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to report that this proposal is a direct result of our enhanced marketing efforts. And it's also one of the spaces that Mass Robotics has recently vacated. So we've already leased one of those up, or pending your approval, of course. Boston Balloon Events and Confetti Company reached out to the planning department after seeing 12 Channel Street advertised in a real estate search website. They've been in business since 1978. They offer event support using balloons, confetti, zero effects, and the like. Now, we've all seen their work without realizing it, while celebrating some of the world championships that Boston sports teams have enjoyed since 1978. All the confetti that the Celtics wore was from Boston Balloon Company. So we're proposing a 3-year term for Suite 504, the 1,700 square foot space with 2 single-year options. The lease will commence in January of 2025. However, the rent will start in April. We're proposing the free rent period to allow Boston Balloon to absorb the cost of the move. Rent will start at $20 per square foot, which I think is spot on for the market. The space it's rectangular shaped with an open floor plan, but there is no air conditioning. It's in very good shape, but no air conditioning, so we think it is absolutely priced properly. We believe that the transaction accurately represents the current market for 12 Channel Street, and I'm asking for your approval for the lease.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Great, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 4, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority for the use of a portion of land on parcel Z known as Pier 10 Park and the BPDA-owned float system located on the adjacent water sheet in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park to operate a ferry service for a period of 1 year, commencing April 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2026, with 4 one-year extension options. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, or MCCA, owns and operates the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center, the very popular Lawn on D, the Heinz Convention Center, and the Boston Common Garage. The MCCA also works to facilitate transit improvements in South Boston waterfront. They've negotiated public-private partnerships to support MCCA-sponsored, quote, Seaport Ferry. They have partnered with Bay State Cruise Lines to provide this fantastic service in Boston Harbor. Several private companies have sponsored the service, which provides ferry service every 20 minutes during the peak morning and afternoon commuting hours. While passengers do pay a fee for the service, the operational costs require subsidy to stay cash flow positive. In March 2024, EDIC board authorized the expenditure of over $2 million to install a floating dock and gangway system and waiting shelter on Pier 10 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, specifically to incentivize passenger water transportation availability within Boston Harbor. Not surprisingly, MCCA approached EDIC requesting to include the EDIC-owned float into the harbor ferry system. I'm recommending today that EDIC enter into a 5-year license with MCCA for that laudable purpose. We're proposing no fee for the first year to help them establish the market and get up and running. It will be for a non-exclusive use. They will not have exclusive use of the float. Should the ferry system be as successful as we all expect, MCCA, starting year 2, will pay a nominal fee of $750 per month, which we'll use to offset our cost to maintain the waiting area and the floating system, et cetera. No one's going to get rich on this deal, but we're helping provide a valuable, reasonably priced service to visitors and residents of Boston. Thank you.
Makes sense. Questions or comments from the board?
Just brief question. So it's every 20 minutes in the peak season. How often does it run do the ferries run in the non-peak season?
Well, the peak hours of the
peak
business,
hours, yeah.
I'm not positive, to be honest with you. I can
Okay.
find out.
No, I think it's a great thing. Glad to anything we can do. I've used it. I think it's a wonderful resource. It helps, our city. So, but more curious than anything else. But thank you for your work on this.
Additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you all.
Item number 5, request authorization to issue a request for proposals for Genentech Security Suite Management Services for 5 EDIC-owned properties for a period of 3 years. Lauren?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the BPDA's 13 million square feet of real assets span Boston's neighborhoods and are managed, developed, acquired, and leased by the BPDA's real estate department. To ensure excellent fiscal and operational stewardship of this public property, staff have implemented a best-in-class Genentech security program. Currently, the Genentech system is functioning within 12 Channel Street at the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, with building security project underway, which will expand its use throughout the building. Through this RFP, staff are seeking similar services in order to connect the additional EDIC-owned locations in the Raymond L. Flynn Park, namely the surface parking lots, Lot V1, C1, and C2, and the open space and marine infrastructure at Pier 10. The BPDA seeks authorization to solicit bids pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, for a service provider for engineering and consulting services for the BPDA Genentech Enterprise Management System at multiple EDIC-owned properties. The scope of services will consist of furnishing all necessary labor, materials, equipment, transportation, supplies, and services to manage the Genentech security system and the related network connections of EDIC-owned parcels. The awarded contract will be for a term of 3 years. Funding for this project will be from the BPDA's operational budget, and the cost is not expected to exceed $180,000 a year for the contract. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 6, request authorization to issue an invitation for bids on behalf of the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, seeking bids for multiple contracts for general repair and maintenance services at EDIC-owned properties for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year extension options. Lauren?
I'm here today to request authorization for the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation to advertise and issue an invitation for bids to seek authorization and act as lead jurisdiction on behalf of the Boston Planning and Development Agency to advertise and issue an invitation for bids to award multiple contracts for general repair and maintenance services for EDIC and BRA-owned properties. The City of Boston's Planning Department, as I mentioned before, we have 13 million square feet of real estate. The work on the property is conducted by our operations staff, but they're supported by a variety of contractors across several specialized trades. The purpose of this IFB is to resource a pool of maintenance vendors under an as-needed contract so staff can be strategic, proactive, and respond to quickly to urgent needs. Given the range of services and the expertise being sought, the BPDA intends to award contracts to multiple contractors in search of each service category. Selected contractors will be responsible for obtaining the appropriate permits, licenses, and equipment. The IFB will include all applicable wage requirements, and the resulting contract will be awarded to the responsible and responsive bidders with the lowest total bid prices for each category of service. As a result of the joint procurement, the BRA and the EDIC respectively plan to award contracts in each category of service with separate contracts for EDIC and BRA-owned properties. This approach will streamline the procurement process for both staff and vendors and will ensure quality vendors are available to meet our needs. We don't currently expect the aggregate annual value of this program to exceed $300,000 in the first year, with the possibility to expand the program over time, for a total program value not to exceed $1,200,000 over 3 years. The resulting contracts will be funded through the BPDA operating budget. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Great. Item number 7, request authorization to execute a contract with Vanguard Pilgrim LLC for parking management services at 5 EDIC-owned parking assets and 4 BRA-owned parking assets in the amount of $30.53 per parking space unit under management annually for a contract term of 2 years with 3 one-year extension options. Lauren?
Thank you. The BRA and the EDIC, both doing business as the BPDA, collectively own and operate 9 parking facilities across the city of Boston. The city of Boston, through its transportation departments, holds 2 standalone facilities. Because it is in the collective economic and operational best interest to join efforts, and because the city of Boston has parking management goals that align with the management goals of the BPDA, this contract will incorporate all 11 parking facilities under a single parking management agreement commencing in 2025. Presently, this represents a total of 4,762 parking spaces. In July 2024, the EDIC board authorized the clerk to advertise and issue a request for proposals for parking management across all 11 properties. That memorandum also approved a memorandum of agreement between the parties to effectuate the collective management of the individual parking facilities under one management agreement. The memorandum of agreement between the parties formalizes the terms of care and custody, operational oversight, financial management, and planned capital repairs, with EDIC holding the contract and the planning department maintaining the operational management control. On November 18th, 2024, the EDIC issued the RFP. On December 18th, the BPDA received 6 proposals in response to the RFP. Of the 6 proposals received, all 6 were responsive, and met the quality requirements and satisfied the minimum threshold criteria. The 6 responsive proposals were from, Vanguard Pilgrim LLC, ABM Parking Management, Laz Parking Limited, Icon Parking Holdings, ImPark, and VPNE Parking Solutions. As set forth in the RFP, the resulting contract is to be awarded to the responsive and responsible respondent who submits the most advantageous proposal, taking into account the comparative evaluation criteria in the fee proposal. All 6 proposals met the minimum threshold and were evaluated based on these comparative evaluation criteria: experience, quality and plan of service, business diversity and ownership, community engagement and local impact, innovation and sustainability, and finally, an interview. After completing the evaluation of the technical proposals and assigning the ratings for each proposal, the evaluation committee analyzed the fee proposals. Based on the evaluation criteria and review of the fee proposals, Vanguard Parking LLC was determined to be the most highly advantageous proposal for parking management services. During the term of the license, any property may be removed from the parking management agreement per the Planning Department's Real Estate Division Strategic Property Dispositions. Therefore, the resulting EDIC contract with Vanguard Pilgrim LLC will be based on a per space unit annual management fee for an amount not to exceed $30.53 per space, with a processing payment fee of 2.3%. The agreement will be for 5 EDIC-owned parking lots, 4 BRA-owned parking facilities, and 2 City of Boston-owned parking facilities, which may be added or removed at various points over the life of the contract. In the event the EDIC exercises the 3 one-year extensions, the total contract term will be for 5 years. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to execute a contract with Brothers Electrical Corp. for the installation of security systems for 12 Channel Street and the 12 Dry Dock Avenue parking garages within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park for a contract amount not to exceed $1,426,000, and to further execute any change orders that may be required to complete the work as deemed necessary by the director for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,568,600. William.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. We are requesting authorization to execute a construction contract with Brothers Electrical for the building security project in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. This matter was last before you in February of last year, requesting authorization to advertise the invitation for bids. As a reminder, there are 2 buildings included in this construction contract: 12 Channel Street, a 9-story, 1940s built Navy storehouse building, and 12 Dry Dock, a 5-story, nearly 1,800 space parking garage. The construction work includes security cameras, access devices, and necessary electrical in order to install. We originally bid in June of last year. We only received 2 bids. Both were over budget. We didn't feel good with those numbers. We decided to bid it a second time, August of last year, where we had 75 interested parties downloading the solicitation, and we received 4 bids on December 12th. The lowest bid was from Brothers in the amount of $1,426,000. The total contract request is for $1,568,600. That amount includes a 10% contingency. The contract will be funded from the FY25 capital budget. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you,
you very
William. Item number 9, personnel. Secretary Polhemus.
Good afternoon. I have a couple of items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda with exact details included in the board memo. We have 1 internship in the Human Resources Department, Abigail Matley. We have 3 employee service contracts in the Finance Department, Anthony Verani, in the Urban Design Department, Dane Bremeyer, and in the Records Management Department, Izzy Wagner.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. And that was the final item. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move that we adjourn the meeting. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Second. Okay. Thank you for joining the January 16th, 2025 Boston Redevelopment Authority Board meeting. At this time, the Boston Planning and Development Agency is hosting public meetings in a hybrid setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. Hybrid means that our board meetings are conducted in person at City Hall in our boardroom on the 9th floor and virtually via Zoom and Boston City TV at the same time. For more information and updates, visit bostonplans.org. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communication at Xfinity Channel 26, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 962. It's also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. And now I ask if there's anyone in the audience who's recording this meeting to please identify yourself now. Okay, seeing none. Lastly, we request your assistance in helping reduce conversational noise streaming in from the hallways. So if everyone would be mindful to move away quietly when they leave the boardroom and wait till they're further away from the doors to continue their conversation, that would be sincerely appreciated. Thank you. Okay, item number 1, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the December 12th, 2024 board meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to extend the tentative designation status of Tenants Development Corporation for the development of parcel 22A in the South End Urban Renewal Area, project number Mass R-56, located at 151 Lenox Street in Roxbury, for a period of 6 months until July 31st, 2025. Benjamin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I'm requesting an additional 6-month extension to the tentative designation for Tenants Development Corporation, also known as TDC, for the redevelopment of parcel 22A located at 151 Lenox Street in the South End. The board originally awarded TDC tentative designation in June 2018 and has extended the designation since the original vote to allow the developer to continue in their work towards helping us improve this part of our city. TDC had proposed to develop a community center, including office space for its headquarters, and been working towards this goal. In early 2024, after continued conversations with staff and significant analysis, it was determined that the prior proposed project was not financially achievable given current market conditions. TDC is now finalizing a proposal that includes a 100% residential use, including 38 new homes for seniors. TDC expects to use the 6-month extension to refine the design development program with planning department staff, further refine the financial model, and have discussions with the City of Boston Mayor's Office of Housing and Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, as well as Mass Housing. TDC also expects to use their extension to initiate the Article 80 process. TDC has already submitted an intake form for the process to receive an executive order certificate for streamlining the approval of affordable housing. This tentative designation extension will allow TDC to make significant progress on this project and provide a clear path to developing 151 Lenox Street into a community asset. We expect to be back before you in 6 months to provide an update on the project status. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you, Benjamin. Oh, no, you again. Okay. Yeah, it's just like, I was like, you can go. I know, stay. Request authorization to extend the tentative designation status of the HYM Investment Group LLC and My City at Peace LLC as the redeveloper of parcel P3 in the Campus High School Urban Renewal Area, project number Mass R-129 in the Roxbury neighborhood for a period of 6 months until July 31st, 2025. Benjamin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The BPDA board tentatively designated the HYM Investment Group LLC and My City at Peace LLC to be redeveloper of parcel P3 in the Campus High School Urban Renewal Area in the Roxbury neighborhood in January 2023. Their status was extended until now. These entities proposes a development that includes approximately 466 housing units, 300 of 8 which are planned to be income restricted. These units will be for families with incomes at or below 30 to 100% AMI, area median income. 282 units are proposed to be rental and 184 for homeownership. The project also proposes to include approximately 695,000 square feet of life science space, 47,000 square feet of retail space, 31,000 square feet for Embrace Boston, and 43,000 of open space. Additionally, the project proposes to deliver 10,000 square feet of rent-free lab training space for Lab Central Ignite. During the requested 6-month extension, the redevelopment team is hoping to complete the following steps. Provide an updated project schedule, including but not limited to the following aspects: permitting, financing, design, and proposed phasing of the building construction. Provide an updated site plan that provides a clear, achievable plan for site access. This plan should consider the expected changes to Tremont Street that were presented to the development team by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority and City of Boston in 2024. And file a project notification form as part of the Article 80 process. Therefore, staff recommends extending their tentative designation for 6 months. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, request authorization to extend the tentative designation status of Powerhouse CNY LLC to facilitate the long-term lease of Building 108 in the Charlestown Navy Yard for a period of 6 months until July 31st, 2025. Yoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am here to request approval to extend the tentative designation of Powerhouse CNY LLC for the redevelopment and long-term ground lease of Building 108 in the Charleston Navy Yard. Building 108 was a vacant building of approximately 32,000 square feet that previously served as the central power plant of the Charleston Navy Yard. The abatement and demolition of the former building was substantially completed in spring of 2023. In October 2020, the Planning Department received 2 proposals in response to the redevelopment RFP for this site. The proposal submitted by Powerhouse CNY LLC was determined to be the most highly advantageous for its ability to execute the project presented, its design and development program, and its diversity and inclusion plan, as well as its financial offer. For the redevelopment proposal by Powerhouse CNY, this consists of 97,000 square feet of building with approximately 84,000 square feet of rentable square feet of labs and R&D space, 1,700 RSF of cafe space, and 39 below-grade parking spaces. On February 11th, 2021, the board approved the tentative designation of Powerhouse for the redevelopment of Building 108. Most recently, the board approved 2 6-month extensions for the developer's tentative designation status in January and July of 2024. Since being granted the last extension, the development team continued to make diligent progress, including finalizing the project's design review with the BPDA and MHC, and coordinating with neighboring owners and stakeholders on transformer locations, and preparing for additional community engagement. During the next tentative designation extension period, the Powerhouse CNY will finalize negotiation with the long-term ground lease, continue to pursue permanent financing with prospective tenants, and continue the Article 80 design review and community process as needed. Therefore, Planning Department real estate staff recommend extending the tentative designation status for 6 months. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Yoon. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 5, request authorization to extend a tentative designation status of the Drucker Company Limited and enter into lease negotiations with the redeveloper to facilitate the long-term lease and redevelopment of Parcel 5 located at 142 Shawmut Avenue in the South End Urban Renewal Area, project number Mass R-56 in the South End neighborhood of Boston for a period of 12 months until January 31st, 2026. Yoon.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the board. 142 Shawmut Avenue is a site of approximately 8,500 square feet of land located in the South End. It is currently a vacant site located between the recently completed Lucas Condominium project at 136 Shawmut Avenue. With the objective to create open green space for the community, the BPDA released 2 RFPs for the redevelopment of the site first in November 2019 and second in February 2020, neither of which did not yield satisfactory responses. So in order to further prioritize the diversity and inclusion during the selection process, the BPDA reissued the RFP in November 2020 with a strengthened and clarified DEI evaluation criterion. In January 2021, the BPDA received one proposal from the Drucker Company Limited, who is also the proponent for the redevelopment at the abutting 1033, 1055 Washington Street, also known as the former Verizon Building. Their proposal responded to the strong neighborhood support for park-like public open space at the site. After thorough analysis and evaluation, BPDA staff recommended that the board award tentative designation status to the Drucker Company, which was authorized in the board meeting on January 18th, 2024. Since receiving tentative designation, Drucker Company has continued to advance the park design and negotiate with the BPDA regarding the terms of the ground lease. During this first tentative designation extension, the proponent aims to finalize negotiations of the ground lease, secure necessary financial commitments, and complete the community process and park design reviews. To be awarded final designation, the proponent must have the building permits ready for issuance, the terms and conditions of the ground lease fully negotiated, and have all necessary financing and design approvals required for the project to proceed to construction. At this time, I would like to recommend extending the tentative designation status of Drucker Company Limited for the redevelopment of 142 Shaman Avenue. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Yoon.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6, request authorization to amend the construction services contract with J.C. Canestraro LLC and increase the contract amount by $278,474.19 for fire pump replacement at the China Trade Building located at 2 Boylston Street. William.
Thank you again. We are requesting authorization to amend the construction contract with Canestraro at the China Trade Building for the fire pump replacement. I was here only last month requesting a similar amendment. That first amendment brought the total contract value to $787,490, and that was to include the complete repiping of the fire pump assembly. When we disassembled the fire pump, it became apparent that we needed to also replace the underground water service lines that feed the fire pump. The scaling is significant, and we're concerned that if we don't replace those lines, we'll damage everything that we just did. This second and final amendment request will increase the contract $306,321.61. The total contract authorization will be for $1,093,811.61, and I'm confident this is the last time I'll be before you on this matter. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 7, request authorization to issue a request for qualifications for the historic envelope preservation and stabilization project at the Chain Forge Building, 105, in the Charlestown Navy Yard. William.
All right, thank you again. I'm excited for this one. It's a new matter before you. We're requesting authorization to issue a design request for qualifications for Building 105 in the Charlestown Navy Yard. This is a building built by the U.S. Navy in 1900. It's the former Chain Forge where the Navy built a majority of the chain for military purposes here in Boston. It was constructed in 1900, became vacant in 1970. It's a 60,000 square foot building along First Ave between 9th and 13th Streets. Portions of the roof, structure, and exterior masonry are in poor condition. This RFQ seeks a building designer, building engineer that can do a complete evaluation, inspection, and most importantly, provide us with some repair concepts that will stabilize and preserve the building. Our estimate for the work is $270,000 for the design. That will also result in a good cost estimate for whatever work they determine needs to be done. We will be issuing the request for qualification subject to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 7C. I hope to be back in the spring with an award recommendation. And as an aside, as you know, our disposition team has already engaged the community in the redevelopment of this building, so we view this work as critical to stabilize and preserve the structure. Happy to answer any questions.
Makes sense. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, item number 8, request authorization to issue a request for proposals for a service provider for Genentech Security Suite for 4 BRA-owned properties for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year extension options. Lauren.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is the same Genetec system from the EDIC vote, and in this case, I'm extending it to Fulton Street, Sergeant's Wharf, China Trade, and also to 290 Tremont Street. I'm happy to go through the rest of the details again if you like.
No. Any questions or comments? No? Okay. Motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 9, request authorization to issue an invitation for bids on behalf of the Boston Redevelopment Authority, seeking bids for multiple contracts for general repair and maintenance services at BRA-owned properties for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year extension, one-year term extension options. Lauren.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is also the same commitment that I brought to you earlier. In this case, it is for assignments on BRA property.
Okay, great. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Item number 10, request authorization to petition the zoning commission to adopt a map amendment to zoning map 7B, 7D, 6A, 6B, 6C to delineate Barry's Corner CC-1 and Everett Telford CC-1 subdistricts as intended by map amendment application number 748 to the zoning commission. Ted.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Secretary Polhemus, members of the board, Director Shen. I'm Ted Schwartzberg, Assistant Deputy Director for Planning Review. I'm covering this item for one of my staff members who's about to begin her maternity leave any minute right now. The amendments before you correct a clerical error made in 2022 when adopting the zoning amendments to implement the Western Avenue Corridor rezoning study. The proposed amendments make no substantive changes. Next slide, please. This slide shows the existing zoning map 7B/7D on the left and the proposed map on the right. As you can see, this is the zoning map for the Alston neighborhood, delineating zoning districts, overlays, and PDA designated areas. Next slide, please. The proposed amendments affect a small area of the map south of Western Ave and west of Everett Street. Due to a map symbology error, the existing map lacks delineation between the Everett-Telford Community Commercial 1 subdistrict and the Barry's Corner Community Commercial 1 subdistrict. The proposed amendments will correct this mistake by adding the subdistrict boundaries as intended by the BPDA Board and Zoning Commission when they originally reviewed and improved this map in 2022. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 11, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 25 residential rental units, including 4 IDP units and 30 bicycle parking spaces located at 23 through 25 North Beacon Street, and to enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restrictions, and to enter into a community benefit agreement. And finally, to take all related actions. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Scott Greenhall, and I'm a project manager with Development Review. The proposed project before you is an Article 80 small project located at 23 to 25 North Beacon Street in Alston. The proposed project comprises the demolition of an existing 3-story residential building and construction of a new 6-story building containing 25 rental residential units, including 4 IDP units. The project will feature 0 motor vehicle parking spaces. 24 interior bicycle parking spaces will be provided for residents. The proponent filed a small project review application, or SPRA, on August 14th, 2024. A public meeting was appropriately advertised and held on September 16th. The comment period ended September 27th. I will now turn it over to Ilana Hames to cover the planning context before the development team begins their presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Polimas. All right, thanks. Much shorter than Scott. Members of the board and Director Shen, my name is Ilana Hames, and I'm covering for Michelle Yee as the Planning Review Team Planner assigned to this project. Next slide, please. The proposed project at 2325 North Beacon Street is located in the Alston-Brighton Neighborhood District within a three-family 3F4000 subdistrict. This portion of North Beacon Street is located within the Union Square commercial node, where it contains a mix of residential, commercial, and mixed-use buildings. In regards to transportation, this area is well-serviced as it is accessible to the Boston Landing commuter rail station, the MBTA Alston Street Green Line station, and multiple MBTA bus lines, including the 57, 64, 66, and 501 bus routes. The proposed project falls within the boundaries of the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment, which was approved and adopted by the BPDA Board in January 2024. As this project is proposing a transit-oriented multifamily residential building with 4 units of income-restricted housing, this is consistent with the need for accessible and affordable housing in the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment. Next slide, please. Zoning relief is recommended for this proposed project as the proposed use mix is consistent with the goals of the Alston-Brighton Needs Assessment, as well as the local context for a neighborhood mixed-use residential and commercial node. This project will also bring many public realm improvements to the area, such as upgrading sidewalks and streetscape at North Beacon Street to meet Complete Streets guidelines and adding an additional street tree to North Beacon Street. Thank you, and I will turn it over to the development team to present the project in more detail.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, Secretary Polimas. My name is Johanna Schneider. I am legal counsel on behalf of the project proponent Alpha Management. I'm here with Tim Loringer of Embark, the project architect, Jay Walsh, our community relations consultant, and the owner's representative, Robert Allen, is available on Zoom. We're really excited to be before you this afternoon with a proposal to redevelop an underutilized site in Alston by replacing an aging 3-story multifamily structure with a new 25-unit building that will really fill in a missing tooth on North Beacon Street, which has undergone a massive transformation over the last several years. This is an ideal site for a residential development of this scale in that it is a short walk to the MBTA Green Line, several bus lines, and the MBTA commuter rail. It is also proximate to Union Square, a major neighborhood commercial area. The project seeks to leverage its location by providing 0 on-site parking while focusing on sidewalk and streetscape improvements along the project's frontage to enhance the pedestrian and cyclist experience. Mindful of feedback that we've received from the community, the site plan has also been designed to ensure that loading, short-term deliveries, pickups, and drop-offs can take place within the site rather than creating congestion and safety issues on North Beacon Street. The project will also support the city's goals of promoting the development of both market rate and affordable housing, bringing 25 new rental units in a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s. 4 of the units will be IDP units, and 1 of the IDP units will be a 3-bedroom unit in order to create a family housing opportunity. The project also incorporates key sustainability goals. The building will be all electric. We have also deliberately sited the building and developed a robust tree protection program to ensure the continued viability of existing mature trees on the site. And we've also developed a planting plan to increase vegetation on the site and to add a new street tree on North Beacon Street. I do want to acknowledge the important role that Councilor Braden and her staff have played in this project. At her suggestion, we've created an interior trash storage location to ensure more efficient trash management and to reduce the risk of illegal, third-party illegal dumping at the site, as well as rodent issues. In response to concerns that the councilor has raised about trash management across Alpha's portfolio in Alston-Brighton, we have taken a very aggressive approach to investigating and clearing outstanding violations. Alpha has hired a third-party consultant who spent 25 years working in code enforcement in the city. That consultant has done an audit across the portfolio and is working with the owner to clear outstanding violations, 95% of which are trash-related. The consultant is also working with Alpha to develop a series of best practices to be implemented at all of its properties. Some of those best practices include bringing trash inside wherever possible, installing a closed lid on dumpsters, monitoring non-resident dumping through surveillance and other deterrence measures, as the audit has revealed that many of the violations involved trash from properties not owned by Alpha. Part of the consultant's scope is also an ongoing monitoring role to ensure efficient implementation of these measures. The last thing I'll say about this project before handing it off to our architect to walk through the proposal that's actually in front of you is that many of the units that Alpha owns and operates in the city, including the existing building at the site, are older stock. We think that on this site in particular going forward, having a new building will eliminate many of the maintenance challenges inherent in operating older buildings that are approaching obsolescence like the one that we are seeking to replace here. This project represents a significant investment by this owner, and they look forward to building and operating a new, modern, and I think beautiful building with much-needed rental housing in a prime location. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tim Loringer to walk through the project, but I'm happy to answer any questions when the presentation has concluded.
Thank you, Johanna. Good evening. Tim Loringer, architect with Embark. If you could advance the slide. You can go one more, please. So kind of as was touched upon, the site here kind of highlighted in the blue is a great location in a kind of mixed use area with a lot of extensive commercial activity and great access to both the MBTA Green Line and the commuter rail, as well as kind of ongoing development, both residential and commercial, in the Alston Yards, Alston Landing area, as well as along Cambridge and North Beacon Streets. So we see this project as a continuation of that development to continue to add more density and more housing options to this kind of lively neighborhood. So if you go to the next slide. A little more detail kind of on that mobility options. In addition to the commuter rail and the Green Line both being within a half mile, kind of 5-minute walk from the site, we also have numerous bus stops on different bus lines, both along North Beacon and Cambridge Streets, as well as an existing blue light station right in Union Square, directly adjacent to the site, and a second one up near Boston Landing. In addition to the kind of existing and proposed extension of the protected bike lane network kind of throughout the neighborhood. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is just an aerial of the site from the south. Highlighted in blue is the site itself. Kind of as was noted, the existing property on the site is not really in scale with the rest of the context given the ongoing development adjacent to it. So we see this as a great chance to infill the site and create that greater density. If you go to the next slide, please. So here's just some photos along North Beacon. That center one there, you can see kind of straight on the site, there's an existing street tree that we will be proposing, protecting, as well as proposing a second street tree adjacent to it. If you go to the next slide. This is another aerial from the other side, kind of looking south here. Kind of two things to highlight. One is the change in typology from the kind of more denser, larger buildings along North Beacon to the slightly smaller residential scale to the rear of the site, which is also a pretty significant grade change below the site. The second is kind of at the rear of the site, there's an existing kind of growth of pretty mature, tall trees. We're proposing to protect and preserve all of those and using those to kind of maintain the buffer between our building and the existing neighbors to the rear. If you go to the next slide. And here's just some photos along the top from the rear of the site and along the side there on the right. You can kind of get a sense of where those existing trees are in relationship to the existing building. The rear of the site is currently being used as parking. So we'll be removing that kind of hardscape and creating a more healthy growing condition for those trees with kind of a lawn area and some ground cover. Next slide, please. So here's just an existing survey showing kind of the trees there at the rear are highlighted, where they exist and where they'll be preserved, as well as that street tree to the front. You can see where the existing building is kind of justified to the west and south of the site, and with a small front yard setback. We'll largely be maintaining that siting. There's an existing driveway on the right side of the site here to the east. And because the neighboring building to our east has kind of a mirrored driveway condition, by preserving kind of that relationship, we're able to maintain as much of a buffer between our building and the building to the east as possible. So if you go to the next slide, please. Because the site's thin and like narrow and deep, we are proposing a single loaded corridor. So we have a single kind of stair and elevator core that we're justifying to the page left here, to the west of the site, and maintaining that kind of large buffer for all the residential units to the east. Along the front, we are kind of, sorry, if you go back one. Along the front, we're creating a modal setback with our neighbor at 1 Everett directly to the west. And then at the rear, you can see we're holding kind of a pretty significant setback to create a shared lawn area for building residents and to kind of keep away from those trees. And then we're preserving and kind of slightly reducing the existing curb cut. And you'll notice right at the center of the site, kind of beneath the building, we do have a turnaround area for vehicles. So while we have no parking on site, we will be providing an area for anyone visiting in vehicle, whether it's an Uber, food delivery, or Amazon drop-off, to be able to completely turn around on site so they're not backing onto North Beacon Street or parking at the curb and blocking access to the bike lane. So I'll kind of wrap up here. If you next slide, please. So here's just a quick cross-section of the front there. We have the existing and the proposed street tree, pretty generous pedestrian pathway, and then a small kind of hardscape and landscaped patio area for building residents. If you go to the next slide. And here's a section through the rear of the site where we have about a 10 feet of grade change between us and the neighbors, where all those existing trees kind of exist on that sloped area in the last 10 feet of the site. We'll be staying away from that, cleaning it up a little bit, adding some kind of healthier ground cover. And then we have another 23 feet there where we'll be proposing a lawn space for kind of shared resident activity. If you go to the next slide. So here on the left is the elevation from North Beacon Street, and on the right is the east elevation kind of along the driveway. So we have two primary building materials. The one on the bottom is this kind of tan, light-colored masonry, where at the front we're picking up kind of the 4-story datum of North Beacon Street, and then it kind of steps down in the rear. And then we have this dark fiber cement that kind of intersects with that and contrasts it. And then where we kind of carve into it, we'll have these wood accent tones to kind of warm up the palette a little bit. And if you go to the next slide, here's just a rendering from North Beacon. You can see there's kind of some folds and cants in the facade. The idea of that is to provide as much light and view from the south toward North Beacon Street as possible, while also avoiding kind of windows that look directly toward the adjacent building. And then if you go to the next slide, here is just another view from Union Square. You can kind of see we're kind of infilling, we're continuing that street wall, picking up that 4-story datum and kind of matching material-wise that kind of earthy tone brick. And then the next slide. Here's just one final view from the other direction looking east. Same idea, we're kind of just infilling that street wall, setting back at the upper 2 levels, and then at that corner there, you can see we have a series of stacked balconies that further kind of erode that corner. And then with that, that's our presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to board questioning. Questions or comments from the board?
Just a brief comment. Just wanted to thank you again for your commitment on all electric, the preservation of trees. I think that speaks volumes. We appreciate that. Certainly urge the developers to opt up to 100% renewable through community choice aggregation, but I think you are going to hear a repeated refrain from me over the next several years. Just it really is going to be up to cities and towns and developers like yourself to really set these aggressive climate goals, absent leadership from Washington. So grateful for our mayor and grateful for those in the building and business community who are heeding the call.
I appreciate the explanation on the outstanding ISD and the record with this portfolio, this owner's portfolio. What do you expect the timing to be for resolution of those outstanding issues?
So there were discussions with ISD throughout November and December, which coincided with the audit that our consultant has done. The portfolio is 29 properties, so there's a lot going on. There were, as of December, 151 violations. As I said, 95% of them were trash-related. 17 of them have already been cleared. 27 have been dismissed for lack of evidence, and the remainder have been challenged in housing court because we don't believe that there's sufficient evidence to tie us to the violations.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? I too appreciate the kind of advanced explanation of addressing Councilor Breeden's concerns. I appreciate that there's also going to be some sort of ongoing monitoring control that, prevents things from getting out of control. We're adding 30, another building into the portfolio. So, I think we're hoping and trusting that, we've figured out whatever trash waste situations you've got going on, that isn't repeated there. And the expectation is to, for all developers to maintain their properties and so.
And we are very committed to doing so.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions or comments. A motion is in order.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Okay, item number 12. Request authorization to enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction in connection with the notice of project alteration submitted to the BPDA on November of 2024 for the proposed development of 176 Lincoln Street, and to enter into a First Amendment to that certain cooperation agreement by and between the BPDA and the proponent, executed as of December 21st, 2023, if required, and to take all related actions. Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, and Secretary Paulimas. The proponent has asked that the board defer consideration of this item at this time.
Okay. Item number 13.
Thank you.
Thank you. Request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 59 residential rental units, including 8 IDP units, 10 car parking spaces, 71 bicycle parking spaces, and approximately 2,211 square feet of commercial space located at 101 through 109 Boston Street, and to execute an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction, and enter into a community benefit agreement, and to take all related actions. Tyler.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimas, and Director Shen. My name is Tyler Ross. I'm a Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Division. The proposal before you is an Article 80 small project at 101 Boston Street in Dorchester. The proposed project consists of a new 6-story mixed-use building. The 6-story building will contain 59 rental units, just over 2,200 square feet of ground floor retail space, 8 IDP units at 13% of the project. The project will also deliver 10 off-street parking spaces and 59 bike spaces for residents. The BPDA held a public meeting for this project on October 28th, 2024, which was well attended and advertised in the local newspaper. I will now turn it over to Alana from our planning division to discuss the planning context before Joe and Beth from the development team begin the presentation. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the members of the public, elected officials, and city agencies who helped review the proposed 101 Boston Street project. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polhimas, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ilana Hames, and I'm the planner assigned to this project. Next slide, please. The proposed project is located in the Dorchester Neighborhood District within a community commercial subdistrict pursuant to Article 65 of the Zoning Code. The project site is located within the Coastal Flood Resilience Overlay District, which requires new construction to meet resilient design standards. These standards include elevating the ground floor of the building above base flood elevation for the year 2070, and limiting the uses that can be located below the design flood elevation. The design proposal cites the ground floor at 21.5 feet Boston City base in alignment with the CFRAD requirements. Next slide, please. There are no recent local planning initiatives for the site at 101 Boston Street. The proposed development is located outside the boundaries of the study area for the planned South Boston Dorchester Avenue study area, for which the southern edge is located approximately 1/4 mile north of the site. The proposed project is located at the nexus of several neighborhood contexts. Across Boston Street to the east, the neighborhood is predominated by the traditional 3-story buildings that comprise much of the 3-family residential fabric of the Dorchester neighborhood. The area west of the site is anchored by South Bay Center, a retail and residential district established in phases over the preceding decades. The most recent phase of South Bay Center, board approved in 2016, established a network of public streets and mixed-use building typologies on the eastern edge of the shopping center. While industrial and commercial uses predominate the adjacent area, developments, including the Jan Karski Way Extension Project, board approved in 2021, will connect streets and residential fabric of recent phases of South Bay with the existing neighborhood east of Boston Street. Staff review of 101 Boston Street align the use, form, and public realm of the proposed project to ensure a meaningful contribution to the ongoing evolution and integration of this former industrial area into the fabric of Dorchester. Next slide, please. Given the limited planning initiatives geographically tied to the proposed development site, as well as the existing poor sidewalk conditions, planning context for this site was driven by necessary streetscape improvements according to the Urban Forest Plan, as well as the Boston Complete Streets Guidelines, resulting in proposed street trees along widened sidewalks with landscape furnishing zones. Next slide, please. Per the precedents set by the evolving neighborhood fabric, the street network surrounding this proposed project, and the community commercial subdistrict within the Dorchester neighborhood, which has come to represent areas predominated by mixed-use, multifamily residential developments at heights above existing zoning regulations. Therefore, zoning relief is suggested for the exceedances related to FAR and height of this proposed development project. After board approval and zoning board of appeal approval of the conditional use permit, the proposed project will continue, Zoning Board of Appeal approval, ignore that last conditional use moment, the proposed project will continue design review at the Boston Planning Department. Thank you, and I will turn it over to the development team to present in more detail.
Thank you, Alani. Thank you, Tyler. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Shen. Attorney Joe Hanley, I have the pleasure of representing the proponent, which is Cobalt Development, who are with us tonight, Lad Thorne and Charles Steelman. We're also working with Merge Architects, Beth Whitaker and her team, who will take you through the presentation in just a moment. I'd like to just, I'm going to take you through a brief overview and orient you to the site a little bit. If you can go to the next slide, or actually, I'm sorry, if you go back, just briefly from the housing standpoint, I'm sorry, next slide. 59 units of new residential multifamily housing, 8 of which are on-site IDP affordable units. We are also a development without displacement, unless you are concerned about asphalt parking lots that aren't being used in the midst of a housing crisis. So we're very excited to be here with a project that enjoys community support and has been fashioned and developed through a very productive process with your staff. And I want to thank Casey Hines and the folks at Urban Design for helping us through this process. Jobs, construction related, but also local neighborhood serving restaurant employment. From a community standpoint, we are very proud to be investing in the public realm at this location to make way for the much needed residential use, and also to activate Boston Street with this small neighborhood serving cafe use on the ground floor of the building. From a sustainability standpoint, we're also proud that we are an all-electric passive house certified development. And as you'll see in the context photos, there are 0 street trees along what is a deficient public realm now. And we are adding 11 new street tree canopy trees to help to cool the heat island effect here at this location. Next slide, please. So the site, just to bring you in broad context, you'll see it's within a walkshed of the Andrew Square subway station, also in proximity to the Newmarket commuter rail station. Along right in front of our site is a couple popular and pretty well utilized bus lines for the MBTA, and we're also in walking distance to South Bay. Next slide, please. Just to bring you closer up, this is a corner lot. So it is a subdivision from the Fortress Self-Storage business, which has a very large parking lot that is underutilized. So we have subdivided this into about 13,500 square feet. at the intersection of Frontage Road and Boston Street. And again, you will see here from the walk shed, the 5-minute walk, 7-minute walk to the train, and all of the amenities and the close walk, of course, to South Bay, which has been revitalized with new services. Next slide, please. So as we look at the context, I'll go through this really quickly. You can see in the upper right, third one over from the right, the asphalt impervious surface that we are subdividing into in order to create the development and revitalize the site. And you'll see along the other photos that deficient, inaccessible public realm and sidewalks, all of which will be improved and upgraded as part of this transformational development. So next slide, I would like to, I believe, just take you closer up here. You'll see in the upper left in the middle, this is the Marriott Hotel that exists. In the upper right, you're going to see Fortress Self-Storage, which has been here for decades. And across the street to the south and east, we start to see a little more of a residential context. So we're very mindful of all of these metaphors as we look at an appropriate scale and development program, and also new open space and the like in order to improve the area for the future. So with that, I will hand it off to Beth Whitaker to take you through the plans. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Joe. Good evening, everyone. Haven't been here in person in years. This is fun. All right, really excited to be here. I'll try to go fast because I think there's not a lot of time left for us. So the upper right image, I know there's a lot to see here. You can see where the street curves. That's our site at that corner. That curvy part is Frontage Road, which will make sense in a minute. So next slide. So just quickly, our thoughts about massing. We have a big podium that is 0 lot line on 3 sides, except for the curved side plan left of Frontage Road, where we're pulling it back to actually create the complete streets dimensions of a tree, several trees along the sidewalk with the 4-foot, and then a 5-foot wide sidewalk. So all of our sidewalks around our building, we are improving from what they are now, which is there aren't any really on frontage. It's just kind of a messy groundscape. And then you'll see how the building tucks in on the right of that axon, which is a 2nd floor walkout terrace. That's a common space, and then a common roof deck on the top. The massing we thought of as this podium, which would be of a different brick color, which you'll see in a minute in the renderings. And then the top 5 floors, which are the residential units, would be of a lighter tone. The ground floor is basically indoor parking, our lobby, the bike storage room, and at the corner of Frontage and Boston Street is that sweet little restaurant space, which is only going to be like 2,200 square feet. So it has, you know, I think a charming scale. Just those diagrams on the right, I won't spend the time on them too much, but the idea was like, okay, podium, 5-story box. How do we break up the massing? How do we make it beautiful? So we shifted it around, have the sawtooth effect on the southwest side and the northeast side, pulled the building back to provide more of a private terrace off of that 2nd floor, and then really hold the corner with the building massing. Next slide. Site plan. I can't read any of that. Hopefully you can. But basically, Plan North is our curb cut, which is right where an existing curb cut is that we've dimensioned to fit for our parking, indoor parking garage, also to create, through the process with the BRA, an indoor loading situation for trash, et cetera. So we're able to get trucks in, dumpster trucks, and get the trash in and out from within the building footprint. And that's the Plan North. Plan West is Frontage Road, where we've widened the sidewalk, created some of our 11 street trees, right? And then just back of house entries along that street because it's not very pedestrian friendly, and then put all of our entries to the restaurant, the lobby, and the bike space along Boston Street. Also along Boston Street, Plan South is an existing bus stop that we are improving by tucking it back a little bit from the curb. We have an active curb cut, which provides safe, pickup and drop off, and then of course the entry to the lobby. Next slide. On the left is an elevation from frontage, just showing the concept of the building, which is the podium with 5 stories above. We have two different size windows. Okay, I can do 2 minutes. Two different size windows and balconies. So we're hoping for, kind of a playful composition, not too busy, but efficient. About half the units have private balconies, and of course, the whole building has the common roof deck and the terrace off the second floor. And that, of course, helps us with the massing, and we have a little bit of material change with those carve-outs, et cetera. The section on the right just shows the relationship between the double-loaded corridor and those units, and of course, the podium space, the bottom left in yellow, is that restaurant retail space. Next slide. This is a view from Boston Street. Frontage is the corner off in the distance. This is the back side of that parking. To the right is the Fortress parking lot, just to orient you. To the left are those triple deckers that start with that fabric on the left side. To the right is South Bay. Again, looking at a dark brick for the podium, a lighter brick for the upper 5 floors, a lot of vegetation on that second floor terrace, which is not a big expansive deck. It is actually designed with offshoots, landscape architects that are amazing to create all these little small nooks. So that's more of an intimate, kind of quiet outdoor space, and the roof deck is more open. Some of our street trees. Next slide. This is a view of that restaurant corner at Frontage in Boston. We didn't do this typical storefront. We tried to create a real sill that will have a planter in it. And more of a pronouncement of those columns that come down that would be wrapped in masonry. Next slide. And just a view from Frontage with the building podium taking on that form of the curved street, which we think is quite nice. But those are back of house egress, right? So the parking is on the left coming off of Frontage, and on the right side where you start to see garage doors, that's our vault, our transformer. And then to the right is where it opens up with glass for the restaurant. Next slide. And one more view. Fortress on my left, the second floor podium, and then, same building with the balconies above. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes our presentation.
Great, thank you. Perfect timing. Questions or comments from the board?
Well, I'll reiterate what I just said, and appreciate the commitment to sustainability. Passive house standards is huge. That should be the absolute minimum. I think you mentioned a quarter of parking spaces or EV have EV chargers available. How many spaces does that represent? Do you know?
So there are 10 total spaces. We didn't overpark this.
2.5.
But they'll also be EV ready as well.
Perfect. No, that's great. No, thank you, Joe. And honestly, it's a great sustainability play, but I think it's enormously attractive to potential residents to have that amenity as well. So it's a win-win all around. So despite the fact that I'll have to wait longer for a table at 224 Boston Street, I am happy to support this project.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Beautiful building. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to item number 14. Just going to give a second to walk out. Okay, item number 14, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the proposed construction of 36 residential rental units, including 8 IDP units, approximately 745 square feet of commercial space, 7 car parking spaces, and 37 bicycle parking spaces located at 3458 Washington Street, and execute an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction, and enter into a community benefit contribution agreement, and to take all related actions. Tyler.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shin. My name is Tyler Ross, a Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Division. The proposal before you is an Article 80 small project at 3458 Washington Street in Jamaica Plain. The proposed project consists of a new 5-story mixed-use building. The 5-story building will contain 36 rental units, just over 750 square feet of ground floor retail space, 8 IDP units at 22% of the project. And the project will also deliver 7 off-street parking spaces, 1 shared motor vehicle for residents at the building, and 38 bike parking spaces for residents. Furthermore, the BPDA held 2 public meetings for this project, one in April of 2024 and another on January 7, 2025. Both were well attended and advertised in the local newspaper. I'll now turn it over to Jason from our planning division to discuss the planning context before George and Philip from the development team begin the presentation. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the members of the public, elected officials, and city agencies who helped review the proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Bohemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Jason McDonald, and I'm a planner on the planning review team, covering for my colleague Ella Wise, who decided it wouldn't be best to accidentally go into labor in front of the board. The proposed, we can do the next slide, please. The proposed project at 3458 Washington Street is located in Jamaica Plain between the Orange Line in the west and Franklin Park to the east. The project is across Washington Street from English High and associated turf fields. It is a half a mile from both the Forest Hills and Green Street stops at the Orange Line. As shown here, there's a significant development activity along this stretch of Washington. Just north of the proposed project is 3430 to 3440 Washington Street, which proposes 2 buildings up to 6 stories in height with 256 units. This project is currently under review. And to the south, the proposed project is the Doyle's Cafe project, which is currently under construction with buildings up to 4 stories in height, 29 residential units, and a new grocery market and bar and restaurant on the ground floor. Next slide, please. The proposed development is located within Plan JP Rocks, adopted in 2017 by the BPDA board to increase market rate and affordable housing choices and protect against displacement in the neighborhood just east of the Orange Line from Jackson Square to Forest Hill stations. In particular, the plan recommends encouraging auto-oriented commercial and industrial land to be redeveloped. The plan also recommends utilizing a density bonus mechanism to allow for additional affordable housing units. The zoning code was not updated to reflect Plan JP Rocks since the plan's adoption. The city has adopted a new approach to affordable housing with citywide inclusionary zoning, which requires market rate housing developments with 7 or more units to support the creation of income-restricted housing at a rate of 17 to 20% of total units. Although the plan was not codified in zoning, it provides use, dimensional, and design guidance for the proposed site and the local industrial zoning subdistrict. Next slide, please. The chart compares some key facts about the proposed project to adopted planning and zoning. The proposed was designed to closely adhere to the plan. In terms of use along the top row, reading left to right, the project is mixed use with multifamily and retail on the ground floor. The zoning for this site is still local industrial, which forbids residential. However, the proposed use are consistent with those recommended by the plan. In addition, the project includes 8 income-restricted units. There are no zoning requirements for affordability since this project filed before inclusionary zoning went into effect. The inclusionary development policy requires 13% affordability for 5 units. Based on the proposed FAR or density of this project, the plan recommends 22% affordability or 8 units. In terms of dimensions along the middle row, reading left to right, the proposed project exceeds the height and FAR requirements of the zoning, but meets the yard and open space requirements. And the project is fully consistent with the dimensional recommendations of the plan. The project will widen the sidewalks along Kenton and Washington pending Public Improvement Commission review, construct a raised crosswalk across Kenton, and close curb cuts along Washington, all of which is consistent to the city's plans and policies. I'll now pass over to the proponents. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Philip Sema, the architect for the project. Well, we can go into this. Well, yeah, so the project team is Boston Pinnacle Properties, and I'm joined by John Beatty as a member of the team, and of course with George Morency here as the legal counsel. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned, this will be 36 new residential units with a ground floor commercial space that's roughly about 800 square feet, 8 income restricted units with varying ranges of AMI. So we believe it's going to create 50 temporary jobs during construction and of course new retail job opportunities for that ground floor space. The site right now is fully paved, underutilized, so we think it's a great change of use for that. And the project will meet LEED standards. It will have a shared electric vehicle. All the spots will be provided with EV charging on the ground floor as well. And then of course it's going to meet the specialized stretch energy code of Boston. Next slide, please. So what you're seeing is our site right in the middle with the red dot. If you look to the left, these are very kind of similar properties, local industrial, that are also slated for improvements of the site, but we are really focused right there on the corner of Washington and Kenton Road. You can go to the next slide. So where we're at in the process, we did the small project review application in April. We've had 2 public meetings, and today's January 16th, so we're right here. Next slide, please. These are axons of the site. If you look at the top left, that really kind of gives the primary view of the building. So that's where the corner on the ground floor retail will be located. The residential entrance to the building is right in the middle between kind of what you're seeing as the 2 bays of brick. So that's the primary residential entrance, which is on Washington. As you go around the corner onto Kenton Road, that's where we have the entry for the parking area. But really I know it's kind of hard to see on this view, but we have a primary facade material of a dark masonry brick on the ground floor on Kenton and Washington. Above that, we transition to a red colored brick, an iron spot brick. And then on the floor above, on the 5th floor, we're showing a board and batten siding that goes around the side. If you look at those 2 lower axons, you notice there's a transition of materials. And as we get towards the residential neighborhoods, we start introducing residential materials. So clapboard siding, kind of that's painted, some more traditional bays. That's what you're seeing on the rear elevation. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is the architectural site plan. We are on Washington introducing 3 new street trees, short-term bike parking, a drop-off zone for Ubers and lifts and grocery delivery, as well as a daylighting zone at the corner. It's actually kind of a tight intersection at Kenton and Washington, and a lot of kind of community concerns were raised about this. So making sure that people have that visibility. We've also chamfered the building to allow for more visibility at that retail entry. A fully accessible crosswalk is being proposed as well. On Kenton, introducing 2 new street trees, and then on Kenton Road, you can kind of see where we're pulling into the property. We have 7 spots. One of those spots is going to be a shared electric vehicle for the individuals in the building. There's also a shared electric bike, cargo bike, that is kind of down in that bottom corner. We're also doing a lot of coordination of the landscaping with the abutters. So the direct abutter on Kenton, we basically worked with our landscape architect to decide exactly what that's going to look like, because we do have a privacy wall for the parking area. So we're looking at it as an opportunity, and so are they. And then for the meeting point, they have a really beautiful landscape yard as well. So we're kind of working with them in similar plantings and size and scale. So that's the architectural. We have a transformer vault as well on Kenton Road that will be paved over. Next slide, please. Sorry, not paved, but pavers. So, and then we've done extensive kind of view studies. There was concerns about the size of the penthouse, any mechanical units. The mechanical units are all high-performance mini-split units that will be on the roof that will not be visible from any across the street on Washington or from any of the butters. And we will be providing mechanical screening for the units as well. Next slide, please. So this is the landscape plan. What you can see in purple is permeable pavers, and those images of that material on the top left there, as well as how that's going to look at the transformer vault that we have. You can more clearly see some of those street trees that are coming in, and so it's really a mix of the permeable pavers along that planting zone as well. So there's a good amount of permeability that's being introduced to the site that's not there now. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you're seeing the architectural CMU that's going to be used for that privacy wall for the parking area so that neighbors aren't seeing that. Next slide, please. Shadow study, so this it's kind of a diamond shape and it's really hard to see, but that bottom diamond is kind of planned south. So basically what's happening is a lot of the shadows are occurring on the public right of way. So they're happening on the roads, they're happening on the sidewalks, and they're not really impacting the abutting properties. I mean, in December they are, but you know, March, April, June, July, it's really kind of advantageous that it's not happening on those properties. Next slide, please. So these are elevations of the property. We worked really hard to kind of bring down the scale to something more of a neighborhood feel. So on Washington, which is the upper view, we have kind of feelings of two bays. I was talking about that residential entrance that's right in the middle of the property to kind of break it up, and the commercial spaces on the left with that chamfered side. And then the bottom elevation is on Kenton. So again, we're kind of introducing some more commercial windows on that side where that commercial space is. We also have the entry to the parking area. You'll notice the door is pretty high. That's to really allow trucks to get in there to deal with trash and recycling. So we left a significantly high ground floor for that space, which is great for the retail area as well. Allows a lot of flexibility on what can be in there. Next slide, please. And then again, as we get to the rear, we're introducing more of those residential materials, more kind of standard bays, typical windows. And again, you're seeing a lot of those balconies that every unit on the second floor up has its own balcony. Which is a great amenity. And then towards the side, on that, the top elevation is looking, sharing the side yard with a community point. And there's a good mix of facade materials there, be it the brick on the ground floor, some of that clapboard siding towards the residential side, and then the brick that is right on the corner of Washington that we're seeing. If you go to the next slide. So this is how the site looks right now, pretty barren. If you go to the next slide. This is, I think, the clearest view of what we're proposing to do and activate the streetscape and make a really beautiful building. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we move to board questionings, I know, I think we have Councilor Weber who is on the line who wanted to make some comments. Councilor Weber, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize to the board if I knew you were meeting in person. I would have been there in person. I promise next time you meet in person, I'll be there. I just briefly, I support the project for a few reasons. Number one, the developer, responded to concerns of direct abutters on Kenton, made some changes, and the direct abutters informed our office that they support the project. The project goes above even IDP requirements for affordability at 22% of the units, which I think is very important. And just lastly, meets the requirements that aren't real requirements, but it meets the criteria of Plan JP Rocks, which a lot of folks in JP support and want codified. I'm looking forward to votes, I think, by the Stony Brook Neighborhood Association and the JP Neighborhood Council before it goes before the Zoning Commission. But I still support this project. Is being voted on today by the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. We can now move on to board questioning. Questions or comments from the board?
I have a comment. First of all, I'd like to thank your team, and you guys have been very busy. I think the last 3 meetings, we have seen you do presentations with the office to condo conversions and things of that nature. As far as this project goes, there's been a lot of development on Washington Street, and just look what could happen when you take down a set of train tracks that were above ground, and now, you have a beautiful Washington Street developing. So I'm glad to see it. Thank you.
I'd echo my colleagues' sentiments and also my successor, Councilor Weber, as someone with the scars from the JP Rocks debate, proudly earned scars because it was a good plan, and I appreciate this team living up to the letter and spirit of what we set forth. It's a solid project, and well done. The fact that there is so much support, and it's not always easy to get things build community support, particularly in JP, and you've done it well. So this is a great project. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to comment on that kind of abutter support and things. I appreciate that. I think by doing landscape coordination, I mean, I think that says a lot, right? Of how you are engaging with your abutters. So that I don't know, that little detail I think is really meaningful. At least it was when I heard it. So. Okay, anything else? Also, just loving all the drop-off zones that I'm seeing throughout the projects tonight, because that is the world we live in. People and things get dropped off. And so it's nice to see that coming off of the main streets, because it just gets really dangerous and, people just stopping the car and blah, blah, blah. So any other questions, comments? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Great project.
Thank you.
So we'll give them a second to clear the room. Plus, I need to go to the chairs. Okay, item number 15. So this board action for 80 through 100 Smith Street project in Mission Hill was scheduled to be heard on November 14th, 2024. At that meeting, I moved that the board table the proposed action for further consideration. And at this time, I moved to take from the table the proposed action for consideration. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes, so that has been removed from the table. And I'll read number 15. Request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80A-6 of the Boston Zoning Code in connection with the notice of project change for the 80 through 100 Smith Street project for the proposed construction of 218 residential rental units, including 33 IDP units, 87 car parking spaces, and 262 bicycle parking spaces, and execute an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction and a cooperation agreement, and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Shen. My name is Ebony DeRosa, and I'm a Senior Project Manager in the Development Review Department. We are here before you today to discuss the proposed 80 to 100 Smith Street Notice of Project Change project. I thank you for your time today. As you know, after a full presentation by staff and the proponent at the November board, the item was tabled. Since being tabled, the proponent met with Councilor Durkin, former Councilor Kenzie Bach, the IAG, and Ms. Willie Pearl from the Mission Maine Task Force in early December. That discussion centered around additional requests for mitigation and project commitments from the group. After much collaboration between the proponent and group over the last month, the following commitments have been made. The proponent will make a one-time contribution in the amount of $200,000 to the Mission Maine Task Force for rental relief and program-related expenses. They will make a one-time contribution in the amount of $75,000 to the city's Fund for Parks. They will make a one-time contribution in the amount of $75,000 to the Stabilizing Homeownership in Mission Hill pilot program for home buyer assistance in Mission Hill. They will create 4 speed bumps along Smith Street. They will offer the community use of the proposed project's outdoor courtyard space from May to October for seasonal weekend activities by Mission Hill organizations. And The proponent has committed to taking proactive steps to make sure the 37 IDP units are equally accessible to voucher holder candidates who participate in the affordable housing lotteries for these units, as well as forego any credit screening for these applicants. Thank you for your time and consideration. There will not be a presentation this evening, but the development team and I would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments?
Just appreciate the team's work over the past couple of months and the community's work as well as the staff to get to this point. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just want to double on that. Mission Hill is a very important neighborhood to the city, and so the actions taken are meaningful and important. So I'm glad that they occurred. If there are no questions or comments, the motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
Okay, item number 16. Request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80B, Large Project Review of the Zoning Code, in connection with the project notification form submitted on October 6, 2023, for the proposed construction of 185 residential rental units, including 158 IDP units and 32 IDP home ownership units, 60 car parking spaces, 217 bicycle parking spaces, 1,594 square feet of retail space, approximately 35,600 square feet of residential rental and daycare space located at 175 Ruggles Street, also known as Drexel Village, and execute a cooperation agreement, execute a development regulatory agreement to govern the entirety of the project site, and to take all related actions. Nick.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Shen. I'm here before you this evening to present Drexel Village, located at 175 Ruggles in Roxbury. In January 2021, after an extensive community process through the Plan Nubian planning effort and through 5 community meetings held for the RFP parcels over 13 months, the BPDA released an RFP for the redevelopment of the RFP parcels. The development objectives of the RFP reflected Plan Nubian Square planning principles, which include economic development, sustainable and resilient development, development without displacement, and diversity and inclusion in the development team. In response to community requests, the RFP's urban design guidelines emphasize preserving trees, providing open space that serves as a gateway to Nubian Square, enhancing the public realm, and ensuring convenient connections through the project site to community amenities such as transit. In April 2021, the BPDA received 3 proposals in response to the RFP. Following a robust public evaluation process, including the convening of a project review committee made up of community residents and stakeholders, on October 4th, 2021, the PRC presented its recommendations to the proponent, its recommendation of the proponent to the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee as the developer of the project site. Based on its evaluation and taking into account the recommendations of the RSM POC, the selection committee determined that the proposal submitted by the proponent was the most highly advantageous and ultimately voted to recommend that the BPDA award tentative designation to the proponent. The proponent was awarded tentative designated status for the project site on November 18th, 2021, pursuant to a BPDA board vote. Drexel Village represents an accumulation of a number of public and private parcels located on Roxbury and Tremont Streets in Ruggles and Tremont Street in Roxbury. The site is currently home to both the Catherine Drexel Church and an ABCD child care facility. The Drexel Village proposal includes 3 new residential buildings with ground floor commercial space, a new child care facility and playground for ABCD, and the renovation and rehabilitation of the Catherine Drexel Church. Between the 3 buildings, the project will create 217 total new units, some of which will be rental and some of which will be home ownership, ranging from studios to 3 bedrooms. 85% of the new units will be made affordable, providing a total of 190 new affordable units at the project site. Additionally, the project will be providing significant new open space, new bike facilities on Tremont Street, pedestrian upgrades throughout the site, new public art, and will be preserving significant existing street trees throughout the site. Before I have the Drexel Village team take you through the project, Jason McDonald from our Planning Compliance team will take you through the planning context. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Bohemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Jason McDonald. I'm a planner in the Planning Review team, and once again, I'm coming from my colleague, Ella Wise. Next slide, please. The proposed project is at the corner of Melnia Cass and Tremont Street, serving as a gateway to the Roxbury neighborhood. The project connects Roxbury to Tremont Street and the Orange Line, and as shown here, contributes to a stretch of redevelopment activity on publicly owned land. The Whittier Choice housing is directly to the south, and just south of Whittier is the significant Tremont Crossing development on parcel P3. Next slide, please. The proposed project is within the planning boundaries of the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan adopted in 2004 and Plan Nubian Square, adopted in 2019, and responds to the BPDA's request for proposals or RFPs for the Crescent parcel, which refers to the crescent-shaped set of parcels abutting the intersection. The Roxbury Strategic Master Plan identifies Melnia Cass Boulevard from Tremont Street to Massachusetts Avenue as a crosstown corridor that provides great potential for economic development with numerous parcels that could be redeveloped. The Strategic Master Plan establishes a few principles for the corridor, including making Melnia Cass more inviting for the pedestrians in order to help reduce the perception of a divide between Upper and Lower Roxbury. Plan Nubian Square was intended to revisit the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan and provide guidance for the disposition of publicly owned vacant land in Nubian Square, including the Crescent parcel, the site of the proposed project. Specifically, the plan recommends providing new housing at a range of income levels, including deeply affordable units and home ownership opportunities. The plan also establishes an urban design framework and notes that the site of the proposed project has the potential to become a major mixed-use transit-oriented hub that is a dynamic gateway with strong pedestrian connections from Ruggles Station to Nubian Square. Next slide, please. The RFP of the RFP of the Crescent parcel built off of these two plans and closely informed the proposed project. In response to community requests, the RFP's urban design guidelines emphasize preserving trees, providing open space that serves as a gateway to Nubian Square, enhancing the public realm, and ensuring convenient connections through the site to community amenities such as transit. This chart compares some key facts about the proposed project to adopt planning and zoning. In terms of zoning, the proposed project is within the Roxbury Neighborhood Multifamily Residential MFR subdistrict and an urban renewal area overlay district, or U district. The U district supersedes the base zoning. The accompanying development regulatory agreements will effectuate use and dimensional controls for the site. In terms of planning and policy, the proposed project was carefully designed to advance the goals of the RFP as previously described, including providing affordable housing at a mix of income levels, preserving the existing trees on site, and providing open space and public connections through the site to Tremont. I'll now turn over to the development team. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Director Shen. I'm Bill Grogan, President of the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, and we're excited to be here this afternoon to share with you our vision for Drexel Village. The Planning Office and JGE Development have come together to really create a new gateway for Nubian Square in collaboration with our key community partner, St. Catherine Drexel Parish. Drexel Village will leverage both the development of the Crescent parcel and the adjacent Archdiocesan property to create a transformative and empowering development. Since our tentative designation in 2021, we've spent the last 3+ years working hard to improve the various programmatic elements of the project and refine our original design. And through a collaborative relationship with the city's planning department, urban design team, and BCDC, we're excited about the development plan that will be brought before you tonight. As we all know, we're in the midst of an unprecedented housing crisis, and the need for a broad range of affordable housing options is greater than ever. And Drexel Village is a direct response to those needs. We've developed 217 housing units across 3 buildings. And we've increased the number of income-restricted units. So 85% of the units, or nearly 160, will be income-restricted from 30% to 100% AMI, with over 75% of those affordable below 80% of AMI. And we've also tripled the number of affordable homeownership units that we'll be providing. So 32 units, a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, will be affordable at 80% and 100% AMI. But Drexel Village really is more than just a housing development. It's a community-oriented development that will contain multi-generational open space, community commercial retail space, affordable childcare, public realm streetscapes, and renovated space for St. Catherine Drexel Parish. Next slide, please. Drexel Village will also make significant investments in the Nubian Square community. We'll be assisting residents in a number of creative ways to create wealth. First, through the affordable homeownership units that I mentioned. Second, we've initiated targeted asset and wealth building, financial education programs at a number of the properties that the planning office owns and controls, and we'll be bringing that program to Drexel Village. We'll also be setting aside funds to support local job training programs, community organizations, and the integration of community-based services into the larger development. And finally, we'll be committing funds to support and subsidize the commercial space and activate the community and park space at Drexel Village. Now I'd like to turn it over to our partner, Jonathan Garland, to walk through the plans in some more detail.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, Director Shen. Glad to be with you tonight. I'm Jonathan Garland, President of JGE Development, working alongside Bill in the Planning Office, and I'm also representing JGE Design as far as the design architecture is involved, and we've been working alongside TAT, the architectural team, who's the architect of record on the project. Next slide. So the site is really a complex confluence of a series of different neighborhoods and communities coming together. It's located in the red, but you can see directly adjacent the northeastern community, Lower Roxbury, steps away from the south end, Roxbury proper, Mission Hill, Wentworth community. There's really a lot going on at this Melnia-Cass-Tremont intersection. Next slide. The site plan is also equally dynamic. We are proposing 3 separate and distinct buildings. I'll start with the red building, which we're calling the B1. It is the tallest of the 3. It's a 13-story, 139-unit residential building, all a mix of rental apartments with a very active ground floor, community commercial space, a cafe that can spill out to the corner of Ruggles and Tremont, and as well as a through lobby space and bike parking. Looking to the right-hand side along Melnia-Cass, we're bounding that with the blue building, which is a 6-story residential building, and that would also hold the 32 affordable homeownership units within the building, as well as access to the below-grade parking from Rayner Circle. And then finally to the purple, which is a linkage between the parish center, the St. Catherine Drexel Parish, that's running along Ruggles Street, and then to the left along Rayner Circle is affordable childcare at the base of the building with ABCD as the operator and 18 residential units above that. In the center of the plan, as Bill mentioned, we're envisioning a multi-generational, very culturally connected public open space with a series of day and nighttime events and seasonal events to really become not a destination, but a place that's really informal and active and a hub of green space for the larger community. Next slide. This is an aerial view on this slide where you can see the scale and the massing of the B1 building, which is taller. It will contribute to the larger high spine along the Tremont commercial corridor, and then B2 and B3 help to negotiate that middle, sort of middle scale and smaller scale building block along Rayner Circle and down Ruggles Street. Next slide. As I was mentioning about the myriad of uses with the open space, these are just a couple of thoughts, but working very closely with the planning department and the BCDC, we were really able to envision and unpack how multi-generational open space works. We have space for the elderly, we have space for the youngest with enclosed tot lots, and we have space for middle ages with exploration trails. And we're also looking to preserve a large amount of existing trees. So as we preserve those trees, we're looking to meander different pathways and create almost like nature walks through the site. Next slide. These are a couple of the vignettes of the landscape. This is a view taken from Ruggles Street looking into the site. To the right-hand side, we're looking to look at the wall as more of a transparent edge of the side of the parish, and to the left, you're sort of walking underneath the B1 building and getting this great public invitation to the open space. Next slide. This is a view, as I was mentioning, part of the trail as we look to preserve the roots of the existing trees. So this is a very creative idea of building a boardwalk that lifts up higher than the roots of the mature trees and creates a really fun, accessible pathway through the site and is a very welcome public invitation to the site. Next slide. This is a rendering, one of our first renderings showing the scale and size of B1. The materiality here is twofold. There's a red brick body of the building juxtaposed with more of a lighter tone, almost like limestone color brick and metal on the reverse side looking into the park, and then a very active ground floor retail space. Next slide. More of an elevational view of the same building, the B1 building, taken from Tremont Street, and really working hard to ground the building and establish a pedestrian scale at the public realm, and also a host of new street trees along Tremont Street. Next slide. This is a glimpse of the B2 building. It's taken from Melnia Cass Boulevard with Tremont to the far right-hand side of the page. Looking at a nice sort of spatial grid with the window openings and a balanced palette between warm tones and cool tones as far as the lighter tone brick and the warm tone of the wood paneling inside the window zones. Next slide. This is the open space side of the courtyard side of B1, so it does have a very different look, on purpose sort of contrasting the red brick that you see from Tremont as you get to this side of the building where we expect to have a good amount of sunlight. We really wanted a lighter facade and something that felt universally acceptable given that this is a public open space. Next slide. This is another shot as you're in that open space looking on the left side, the inside core of the B2 building, and to the right of that with the slightly darker tone is the inside core of the B3 building. Next slide. And then moving around to Rayner Circle, which is the street running sort of left on the page in Ruggles. So this is at the corner of Rayner and Ruggles. We are very excited about the ability to restore and preserve the existing church that's on the site, and that will go through a comprehensive renovation. And then to the right of it is the B3. At the base will be the affordable childcare, and at the top will be the 18 residential units. Next slide. And then finally, this is a view taken from the intersection of Melnia Cass and Tremont Street. And both with the preservation of the trees and the scale of the building, we think this is a very welcome public invitation to the open space and to the site. Next slide. And I believe that concludes our presentation. Thank you. Open for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions or comments from the board?
What's your projected completion date?
Sure. We're actually just in the funding round with the City of Boston through the Mayor's Office of Housing. We anticipate going in through additional funding through the state, probably about next fall. So we'd be looking at probably about 18, 24 months probably before we get all of our financing and in a position to start construction.
Additional questions or comments?
Just appreciate the project. I think it looks great, and the degree of affordability is phenomenal. Thank you.
Through the chair, it is a wonderful project, wonderful looking project. I think it can connect 3 different neighborhoods all together from the Whittier to I think that's the Madison on the Circle side. That's right. Complex, yep, exactly. Beautiful. What do you think the first building, which one would go up first? What do you?
Yeah,
expectations?
so we'd be looking at the B1 building, which is building along Tremont Street, which is a 13-story building. That would be the first one. And then looking to then build B2 and B3 and the renovation of the church to follow that.
Thank you.
I'd just say, again, it is a beautiful project with a commitment to affordability. Those two notions ought not be in conflict with one another, and you folks are proving that that's not the case. It looks great. I can't wait to see it. Well done.
Yeah, I echo my fellow board members. It, strikes me that it's called Drexel Village. And I appreciate that you are, creating that village intentionally. We always worry, right, with really tall buildings and density, right? Can you still have community? The intentionality of one, just what's going to be on the site, but also, being mindful of all the different, generations and the needs and kind of building that community with it. I'm just, again, super happy and excited for, this public land for public good. This is what we wanted to see back in 2021 when we, put it all out there. Yeah, I think that's it. So if there are no other further questions or comments, motion is in order.
My office looks out on this site, so I can barely wait for you to get this completed.
Oh, you didn't have the microphone on. That's okay. Yeah,
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark.
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's 5:30. Oh, okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we come back and start the public hearings. 101 Tremont Street project. This hearing was duly advertised on December 24th, 2024 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity. We are taking support and opposition at the same time, so if you're planning to testify via Zoom, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active and click on the hand icon on your Zoom control panel. This will signal to the staff that you would like to speak, and when your hand is raised, it will be blue. If you're calling into the meeting and would like to testify, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and allow you to talk. You must unmute your microphone and your webcam will not be active. If you are planning to testify in person in the boardroom, please line up behind the podium after the presentation has concluded and we will call on you. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. And we have Scott to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Scott Greenhall, and I am a project manager in development review. The proposal before you is an amendment to the Suffolk University 2020 Institutional Master Plan to add the 101 Tremont Street proposed project, which involves the conversion of the existing approximately 88,625 square foot office building into approximately 67,170 square feet of student housing with a second floor amenity space for various student activities and a student lounge. The proposed project adds up to 280 undergraduate student housing beds. The ground floor level consists of 8,938 square feet of publicly accessible retail and restaurant space, which will remain. The Suffolk University 2020 IMP was approved by the BPDA board on May 14th, 2020, adopted by the Zoning Commission on June 10th, 2020, and approved by the mayor on June 19th, 2020, with an effective date of June 19th, 2020. On August 15th, 2024, Suffolk submitted the Institutional Master Plan Notification Form and the Project Notification Form. On October 23rd, Suffolk submitted the proposed IMP amendment. Suffolk presented the proposed project to the Suffolk Task Force and public in joint task force and public meetings held on September 17th and November 19th, 2024. The comment period for this proposed IMP amendment ended December 27th, 2024. I will now turn it over to Ford Del Vecchio to cover the planning context before the Suffolk University team begins their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh. Well. All right.
Do you think you could do it without the slides?
I can present without my slides. Just when
Yeah.
it comes to the proponent, they'll definitely need their slides.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polhemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ford Del Vecchio, and I'm the planning reviewer assigned to this project. Launched in October 2023, the Downtown Residential Conversion Incentive Pilot Program, the Downtown Conversion Program, aims to support the adaptive reuse of commercial office buildings into residential use. The pilot program was informed by both, one, the City of Boston's October 2022 Downtown Revitalization Report, which analyzed and made recommendations for downtown economic revitalization, as well as number two, the planned downtown planning process, which recommended a downtown office conversion program as a key strategy for achieving the plan goals. While this project is not utilizing the tax credit offered by the pilot program, the proposed project helps to further the goals outlined in the plan and helps to reinforce the residential growth of downtown. The proposed project and corresponding IMP amendment also furthers the goals of Boston Housing Strategy 2025, which notes the city will work with Boston's many colleges and universities throughout their institutional master plan process to reduce the number of students living in off-campus housing. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the presentation to the proponent team to present in more detail. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Rojas, members of the board, Director Shen. It's great to be here this evening and to thank you for carving out some space for us to talk about a project that we're very excited about. We think it's one of those projects that dovetails nicely with our students and their needs in the city and its agenda. So it's always nice when you land in that sweet spot on a project, and we think this does that. Let me just say we have with us tonight Beth Wilson-Shunter from MBBJ, Chelsea Sadler from VHB, Michael Rooney from VHB, and Jim Green from Reuben Rudman. They will talk a little bit about the building itself and the specifics in a minute or two. I wanted to just, next slide. Next slide. Wanted to talk a little bit about how we got here and just how importantly we take the master planning process. We think it's a good process. We think it's a sound process. It provides predictability for people who live in the neighborhoods, and we try to follow it and have followed it very, very closely. If you look at this slide, you will see Suffolk's current footprint. And if you look closely at the top of that, the first red block at the top of the screen, that is the one building we have remaining on Beacon Hill. It's the Ridgeway building on Cambridge Street. It is our gymnasium and our fitness center. When we set out to do our master planning, we had a couple of core planning principles. One was to try to move off of residential Beacon Hill and move into a downtown spine of a campus. Another was to provide housing for our students because that fits nicely with the city's agenda. We've been able to do that. Next slide. And how we did that was to develop a core or a cluster concept of planning, with its main objective being predictability for people who live in a neighborhood. So there are projected areas of expansion that you can quickly ascertain by looking at this if you look closely at it. There are three clusters, potential growth clusters, and one academic cluster shown on this slide. There's also a cluster we've added to East Boston because we have athletic fields in East Boston. What it has done for us is to produce two excellent projects. One, the one we talk about tonight at 101 Tremont, and also the conversion of the Ames Hotel to a dormitory, which we did in 2020. The very first project that this board voted on virtually. So we have that little bit of corner of history of Boston as the first one. Next slide. Looking at this, you can see that the results of our working to produce additional student housing has come up with a series of projects and their beds. If you look at it closely, excuse me, 1 second, there it is. You will see Smith Hall in 1996, 443 beds. You will see Miller Hall at 10 Somerset in 2003, 352 beds. You'll see the 10 West Residence Hall came online in 2008 with 266 beds. The Modern Theater Residence Hall, which is above the Modern Theater in the Theater District, which came on in 2010 with 184 beds. 1 Court Street, which I referred to earlier, the Ames Hotel, 273 beds in 2020. And tonight, this would add around 280 beds to our total count. We have set in our master plan a goal of housing 50% of our undergrad students. With the 101 Tremont Street project, we'll jump from 34% to 40%, which means we're getting there. We're on our way. And that is our goal, to house 40% of our student body. Next slide. There are a number of community benefits that we think come with this project. Obviously, it's going to bring some vitality, some energy, and some life to an area that could use it right now. And we're happy about that. Suffolk University believes in Boston. We've always shown that. We've done projects, we've pioneered, we've gone into areas, and we've shown that we believe in the city. This is another example of that. It really does, in addition to being a good location for our students and our university, it truly does, I think, contribute to the area. and provide that light and that vitality and that energy, and to have it be a vibrant and engaging neighborhood. It will provide a $75,000 contribution for expanding the Blue Bikes network. We will be updating sidewalks and ramps adjacent to the project site, continue our long-standing commitment to benefits up over $8 million annually. Next slide. The IMP amendment adds 101 Tremont Street to the list of Suffolk University's owner leased properties and establishes an IMP overlay area for the proposed district. It helps us, as I mentioned, to expand our student housing, assume a strong sense of campus which our students need and use. We have a campus that, as you know, stretches along an urban spine. We're one of probably the only university in the city that doesn't own a lawnmower. We have nothing but sidewalks and streets. But it's important for our students to be able to have a sense of community when they are living at Suffolk University. The location of this project fits that perfectly. It couldn't be a better location for a project for us to house students in this location because it is really situated centrally among our academic cluster and among our other residence halls. So they have that interaction with other residence halls and other students. As I mentioned earlier, and is shown here, we have the goal of 50%, and this gets us to 40%, so we're happy with that jump. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over now to Mary Beth Wilson-Shunta from, Wilson-Shunta from NBBJ to talk about a few specifics of the building and the project itself.
Thank you, John. And thank you all for this opportunity. So 101 Tremont Street is a historic building from 1899. It's in a historic district. It was originally called the Paddock Building and it originated as an office building. And so this is located, as John was saying, along that Suffolk University spine, and it's right in the center of that academic cluster. So that overlap is a perfect location for this building to occur. It's right across the street from the Granary Burial Ground and other notable landmarks within the city as well. Next slide, please. These are just a few facts about the building. It is as I mentioned before, it was originally designed as an office building. And so with this is a conversion of use, change of use from that office component into the student residential. So we're looking to house up to 280 beds. It's 11 stories. And I won't go through every single one of those numbers that you're seeing, but I think the main thing to take from this is the tenant retail space on the ground floor will remain. And then basically everything that was above, which was office, will be converted to that student housing. On the second floor, there will be a student amenity space to help support and create community, as John was mentioning, within the building itself. Next slide, please. Sorry, one more thing. We are not adding any gross square footage to the building, so it's all remaining as is. On that ground floor, so as I mentioned, that tenant retail space will remain, and that's primarily the majority of the use within the building on this floor. The lobby is existing, but we will be renovating that for use and access to the floors above. The main changes on this floor have to do with the stairs, the egress stairs from above and below to provide access out of the building. We will be replacing all of the existing sidewalks surrounding the building within this project, as well as upgrading accessibility ramps at the crosswalks within this as well. We will be providing short-term bike parking at the adjacent site, which is a Suffolk University building, 120 Tremont Sargent Hall. Next slide, please. Within this building, this is just an overview of those programs that I just mentioned. So the tenant floor on the ground floor, and then below is more building support spaces within the basement, second floor student amenity space, and then student housing above that. Next slide, please. And these are the conceptual renderings, which look very similar to the existing photographs that we showed. The intention is not to change, it is to upgrade in terms of the windows to provide and meet the energy code and better performance for the building. And then signage along the canopy that says Suffolk University and banner side, similar to many of the buildings that Suffolk has. Next slide, please. In terms of sustainability and resiliency, the building is securely at LEED Silver with 53 points. We are exploring opportunities to potentially hit LEED Gold, so we're looking at that actively. The project has excellent carbon emission intensity that we're predicting, and we are moving to an all-electric mechanical system for space and domestic hot water heating. We're also within that LEED Gold pursuit, we are looking at purchasing renewable energy credits to offset a portion of the energy use of the building as well. In terms of climate change resiliency, the project is located outside of the coastal flood resiliency overlay district. But we also, just to help with that resiliency, we are moving all of the new mechanical equipment to the roof. And then also we're replacing the new roof membrane with a solar, of 0.85, which will help reduce that urban heat island accumulation, as it's a black roof currently. I think one of the most, at least I love this part about it, is over 60% of the existing building will be reused, and that includes structural, the foundations, the columns, and much of the solid building envelope. And next slide. John, do you want to?
I wanted to underscore the fact that we are keeping the first floor, ground floor retail Beacon Hill Pub. We think it's almost an iconic location that is important to keep an integral part of the project. We have enjoyed a lot of support for this project as we've talked about it. All of the elected officials representing the area, Senator Lydia Edwards, City Councilor Ed Flynn, and Representative Aaron Michaelwitz have issued letters of support. We have support from the Holocaust Museum, which are abutters on the other side of the building, and the hotel, AKA, which are direct abutters on the other side of the building. So it's been readily accepted by those we presented it to. We as an institution feel that we're accomplishing something by doing something for our students, but also helping to further the city's agenda by taking that pressure off of the rental market. The more we can take students off of neighborhoods like Beacon Hill and North End and East Boston and into our housing, the more we free up units for the workforce, families, and others. So we think that's what this contributes to. So we would hope you would lend fair consideration to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation. So it's a public hearing, so we'll go to public testimony first. If you're in the room, you can line up against the podium, and then we will also take online comment if there are any. Please.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Shen, Madam Secretary, Mina Perez representing the Carpenters Union. On behalf of hundreds of our Boston residents, we want to go on record and support. And at the same time, I take a second to thank Suffolk University. Our members have joined job opportunities for many years at your campuses. So thank you.
Good evening, Madam Secretary Bohemus, Madam Chair Rojas, Director Shen, and BPDA board members. My name is Michael Burns. I'm a representative of the Sheet Metal Workers Local 17 here in Boston. As always, thank you to Scott and the BPDA team for all your hard work in facilitating these very important community meetings and hearing the voices of all the stakeholders involved. I want to thank Mr. Nucci as well and the Suffolk team for partnering with the Boston Building Trades Unions and the tradesmen and women here in Boston. as we like to say, with the other four-year degree, or sometimes five, depending on the trade, through our apprenticeship training programs. These programs provide a pathway to the middle class for young men and women in the Boston metropolitan area that may not be going on to colleges and universities. These jobs provide our members with good wages, health insurance, and a secure retirement. And they're able to raise their families and hopefully stay in the neighborhoods that they grew up in. On behalf of my membership, I rise tonight to support this project. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Hi, Director, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Tom Ward. I'm with the Iron Workers Union in Boston from the Charlestown section of Boston. I'd like to ask Councilor Nucci, thank you. Do you have a preferred general contractor? Question. Do you have a preferred general contractor?
We can't ask.
Not yet? I just asked, yeah. He said no. So I rise in favor of it, and thank you for your work on this project. Thanks.
So I'm going to take comments from folks online. Joanne Barber, you can unmute yourself. Joanne, you just need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm just wondering, in terms of all of the workaround pilot, where Suffolk stands with their pilot payments for the city.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll take that into the board questioning. Do you have any other comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll ask.
Jesse Purvis, you can unmute yourself.
Hi there, my name is Jesse Purvis.
Oh, we heard you at
Would like
first,
to-
Jesse. There you go. Are you back?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my name is Jesse Purvis. I'm Director of Policy for Boston City Council President Rusi Lujan. Our office would like to go on record in support of this project. The council thinks it's a great project and we are excited to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Shaitan Green, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shaitan Green. Special thank you to board members, Madam Chair, Secretary Bohemus. My name is Shaitan Green. I'm a lifelong Boston resident, also business agent with the Boston Building Trades Unions. We represent over 35,000 members, tens of thousands of members and families who live and work here, right here in the city. I believe this is a great project, and a great project is one that also helps uplift communities. I second a lot what fellow brother Mike Burns said from Local 17 about just really a great project really lends down a ladder to the middle class with intention on safety, making sure that is a top priority through investments, through training, registered apprenticeship programs, allowing people literally direct access into the middle class, and looking forward to a future to living and staying in a city where they grew up at. And also healthcare and retirement benefits, right? The whole package. This is what it takes to raise a family in Boston. And I believe this project hits all those marks. So I speak in support of this project here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaitan. Is there anybody else who would like to testify about this project, either in the boardroom or on the Zoom? Madam Chair, this concludes the public hearing portion of this item.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to board questioning. Let's go ahead and kick off with the first question about the pilot status. Yeah.
Suffolk University, ironically, had made the very first pilot payment in the city of Boston back in 1978. We have kept pace. We do a voluntary 3% increase each year. We add that to our previous total. We're currently at about 80% of the requested amount, which puts us in the top 1 or 2 of universities our size with a similar footprint. So we're pretty proud of our contributions.
Okay.
I think they're important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In addition to the contributions your students make to the city, all of that's taken into consideration. Do we have any other board questions or comments? Yeah, I just want to say, you have, you talked about reaching the sweet spot, right, of, and I think we've seen that a lot tonight. And I think that's when kind of our plans come to fruition and we see developments going up against them. So it's really motivating and exciting to see Suffolk continuing to be committed to student housing. I went to a school in the city, not this city, back in Chicago, but it's a very unique way to learn. And so I just really love that, that Suffolk and Suffolk students are here in the middle and like in the middle of all of it. It's just a really great learning ground and just very complimentary of your university. So with that, a motion is in order.
Terrific project, so moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Cheers. Okay, we'll give them a second to exit. Okay, we're going to move on to the second public hearing. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Articles 80A-2 and 80C-5 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the proposed development plan for planned development area number 155, 250 Everett Street in Brighton, and 250 Everett Street project. This hearing was duly advertised on December 31st, 2024 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity. We are taking support and opposition at the same time. So if you're planning to testify via Zoom, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active. Click on the hand icon on your Zoom control panel, and this will signal to the staff that you would like to speak. When your hand is raised, it will be blue. If you're calling into the meeting and would like to testify, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and allow you to talk. You must unmute your microphone and your webcam will not be active. If you are planning to testify in person in the boardroom, please line up behind the podium after the presentation is concluded and we will call on you. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain, and at that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. And we have Stephen to begin the presentation. Stephen.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary Paul Hemuth, and Director Shen. My name is Stephen Harvey, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at the City of Boston Planning Department. Thank you for your time today. The proposal I bring before you for consideration is the proposed development plan for Planned Development Area, PDA, number 155, and proposed large project at 250 Everett Street, located at 250 Everett Street in Brighton. The proposed project filed a letter of intent, LOI, on May 8th, 2023, and filed a project notification form, PNF, on January 5th, 2024. The proposal calls for the demolition of the existing building and the construction of a new multifamily residential building. The new residential building proposal is approximately 6 stories in height, containing approximately 256,250 square feet of gross floor area. The residential building will have approximately 240 residential units with below-grade parking for up to 120 vehicle spaces. The proposal also includes an enclosed bicycle storage area with approximately 240 bicycle parking spaces for residents and employees of the proposal, as well as approximately 48 publicly accessible short-term bicycle parking spaces. Pursuant to Section 80B-5.3 of the Code, I hosted an Impact Advisory Group IAG meetings for the proposal on January 23rd, 2024, and on November 19th, 2024. I also hosted public meetings for the proposal on January 30th, 2024, and November 21st, 2024. If approved by the board, this proposal will gain Article 80C and Article 80B approval, which would allow the proponent to begin construction of the overall proposal after receiving approval from the Boston Zoning Commission, the Public Improvement Commission, and completing design review. With that said, I will shortly turn it over to the 250 Everett Street team, led by Tim Alexander of Mill Creek Residential. Tim will showcase the proposal in full. However, before that occurs, my planning colleague, Ford Delvecchio, will present the planning context for the proposal. Once the entire presentation is complete, Tim Alexander, Patrick O'Connor, the project attorney, and I will take any questions from the board. Thank you once again for your time this evening.
Thank you, Stephen. Next slide, please. Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Polimis, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ford Delvecchio, and I am presenting for LOIs, the senior planner on the planning review team assigned to this project. The proposed project at 250 Everett Street is located in Alston, just south of Western Avenue on the west side of Everett Street. It is located centrally within a large block that includes Star Market and significant surface parking. Smith Playground and the Charles River Parkway are within a 5-minute walk, and Boston Landing Station is within half a mile. Next slide, please. The proposed project is squarely within the planning boundaries of the Western Avenue Corridor Rezoning Study, known as WACR-Z, adopted by the BPDA board 2 years ago in October 2022. You can see the WACR-Z study area outlined here, with the proposed project outlined and lightly shaded in red. Specifically relevant to 250 Everett, the study recommends use and dimensional standards. In terms of use, this area was envisioned for residential use as well as ground floor retail where appropriate, especially in the redevelopment of existing commercial uses. In terms of dimensions, the 250 Everett parcel straddles 2 sub-areas of the study. The Barry's Corner sub-area, seen in the light red and darker orange colors, is envisioned as a higher density node within commercial development. A small portion of the northern edge of the project is within the Barry's Corner sub-area. The recommended max height here is 125 feet. Then, in the Everett-Telford sub-area, shown here in yellow, which most of the proposed project is located, the recommended max height is 65 feet. The recommended max lot coverage is 60% in both sub-areas. The study also envisions an expanded street network to introduce a finer grained network of streets and blocks, with special attention given to east-west connections on either side of Everett Street. The image on the right is copied from the study, showing the potential new street network with east-west and north-south connections in the superblock in which the proposed project is located. Next slide, please. This chart compares some key facts about the proposed project to adopted planning and zoning. Specifically in this area, PDAs are allowed when they advance planning goals, including provision of affordable housing, creation of new street connections, and new open space. The proposed project is a PDA. In terms of use, reading left to right along the top row, the project is multifamily residential, consistent with zoning and planning. In terms of dimension, reading left to right in row 2, the proposal was carefully designed to be consistent with zoning, as well as the recommended dimensions in WACR-Z. This is complicated by the fact that the proposed project is bisected in two by the zoning subdistricts and planning areas. But this was carefully considered during the Article 80 review process so that the project's dimensions reflect a blend of the recommended dimensions for both sub-areas. For example, the proposed height is consistent with a lower density sub-area, and the proposed FAR is less than the max FAR of the lower density sub-area. In terms of transportation, the project is consistent with WACR-Z and Boston Transportation Department's bike parking guidelines. And importantly, the project provides significant public benefits, again, carefully crafted based on the WACR-Z recommendations and unique constraints for the site. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the project team to present in more detail. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polimis, and Director Shen. My name is Tim Alexander with Mill Creek Residential. On behalf of Mill Creek and the proponent team, I have a few slides just to further describe the project and the process that we've been undertaking. The site aerial and context slide is helpful as it shows the unique context, the immediate context of where 250 Everett sits within Alston-Brighton. You can see it's east-west on this slide, but the north-south ribbon of commercial and light industrial that connects Western Avenue and the Mass Pike But the site also sits obviously proximate to single-family and low-density residential neighborhood to the east. And so with this context, and fortunately, as Ford just described, the Western Avenue Corridor Study and Zoning contemplated this transition and created appropriate density, building height, and other planning metrics for the site. And so Mill Creek first became involved in the site in 2021. It was very important to us that, that the Wackersee, we followed the Wackersee zoning or planning, and then obviously zoning as adopted, because it created a well-reasoned roadmap for redevelopment of the site. On the next slide, I can talk a bit about existing conditions. The map or the aerial on the lower left has 3 points where the photos are taken. This is a 1.8 acre site, currently home to a 3-story commercial building that was constructed in the early 1980s. And that building is surrounded primarily by surface parking to serve the building. The immediate neighbor to the south is the McNamara House, which is a senior affordable housing community that's been a fixture in the neighborhood for many decades. And to the west and the north is a commercial development that Stephen and Ford referenced, which is anchored by the Star Market and its surface parking, but also has several other restaurant and retail uses. Photo A on the upper left is taken from the northwest corner of the Star Market, looking east across their parking towards 250 Everett. Photo B is taken from Western Ave, looking south towards 250 Everett. And photo C is taken from Everett Street itself, looking directly into the site and the 3-story building that's currently on the site. Moving to the next slide, which is the site plan. We're obviously proposing a residential redevelopment of the site in accordance with Wackersee. And this plan really illustrates 2 things. Of course, the building footprint and the orientation of the project, but also the landscape plan. So there are a few key takeaways here. One, on the orientation of the project towards Everett Street, really recognizing the context of the existing neighborhood and residential neighborhood to the east. Our design creates openings and breaks in the massing with 3 courtyards that face Everett Street. Another attribute that's a little bit less obvious, but is in accordance as well with the Wackersee zoning, is that our plan anticipates the potential for future development either on both the north and the west side of our site, which is plan right and plan north. And what we've done is, in coordination with planning staff, set aside buffer and setback on both of those sides of the project that could accommodate complete streets, specifically sidewalks and street trees on our site, that will help to create a full complete streets profile if future redevelopment should occur off-site to the north and to the west of our site. Most importantly, I want to point out the southern open space, which is on the left side of the page. This is nearly a 1/4 acre in size. It's been an iterative design with both planning staff and BCDC input, really to create both connections to McNamara House to the south, east-west connections between the neighborhood east of Everett Street and the existing Star Market commercial center. And it also creates active and passive uses on site. So it's both a connection, but also a place for people to gather. And it's something that was very important to us and to our coordinated effort with planning staff. But one more piece on that is, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but there are a certain amount of trees on the very left side of the screen that are shaded a little differently, more a darker green, and that's the area of intended tree save. So there's existing tree canopy on the southern edge of the site, and there are approximately 13 trees that we'll work to preserve during construction that will maintain that canopy and really be a great start for that new open space. Moving along to just a quick detail on building floor plans. We're showing various floor plans on this slide. The ground floor on the upper left, the second floor on the lower left, a typical floor of the 6-story building on the upper right, and then the top floor is on the lower right. The blue areas are showing residential square footage. The reddish colors are showing common areas and amenity spaces. These areas are intentionally oriented towards the southern end of the project and the open space that we just talked about. Floor plans will be a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units But we also propose an ample number of 2- and 3-bedroom units, recognizing the need in this part of Allston-Brighton for larger family-size units. Not shown on this slide is the fact that we have one level of below-grade parking. Much time was spent with planning staff to locate the parking in the first place, but also locate and create the most efficient vehicle loading and service plan. So you can see the loading and service comes directly off of Everett Street in one location towards the left side of the floor plans. The goal was to create loading and service with obviously the least visual impact, but more importantly, minimize the actual impact on Everett Street and the neighborhood for resident entry and exit, and move-ins and trash, and et cetera. Moving on to the next slide, which shows a couple of elevations and a cross-section. Our collective goal on the facade and the architecture was to create, first, a cohesive design, drawing from the existing neighborhood. Second, to build a hierarchy for the look and feel of the building, both through various moves in massing as well as use of different materiality and color. So through several productive sessions with planning staff and BCDC as well, we are able to first define the architectural language of the project and then refine that palette and the materiality that would be used. So a couple quick things. On the elevations, you can see the first floor, which is represented with a warm, dark masonry treatment across the 4 sides of the project. The middle floors also have a warm but more natural color, a high-quality materiality that is also intentionally interrupted with balconies and other step-backs to break up the massing. And finally, the top floor has a third treatment in certain key areas, a step back even further to provide more contour in the massing. The last 2 slides show better this design language. So the next slide is a perspective rendering from the middle part of the project, and it shows the main entry off of the center courtyard. The main residential entrance is oriented intentionally on the outside corner of this courtyard, and there's a 2-level masonry and glazing facade to signify this main entry sequence. The streetscape design and the 3 courtyards that face Everett also went through significant coordination with staff and BCDC. A lot of focus was on clearly defining the public realm and also appropriately delineated between that public realm and the private spaces. So, for example, the courtyard that's seen on the screen right now is the main entry courtyard, central to the project, and is largely a public space. There is another courtyard further to the north that is quiet, passive, more for resident entry and use, and that's a private space. The last slide I have is just another view and perspective rendering, this time from the southern edge, looking across Everett Street and into the planned open space. This image gives a better sense of the size and scale of the space. We're really excited about it and the fact that it's large enough to incorporate multiple outdoor rooms, but also pedestrian pathways and the connections I mentioned earlier. We're really intending to create connections in the neighborhood, but also a place to gather with this open space. So with that, I can pause for questions and public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to comments in the room. If you have a comment, you can please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, Mayna Perez. Through numerous meetings at the neighborhood, we were able to communicate with the developer as well as many members of the community, and I want to thank the developer for accommodating the changes that they wanted. And because of that, the Carpenters Union were in full support of this project. Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand. Jane McHale, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is Jane McHale, and I am the Vice President of the Board of Directors of McNamara House, the abutter property of 80 low-income elderly housing. We are in support of this project, but we wholeheartedly emphasize while you are building, which is probably going to be 2 years, you really have to put a very definite mitigation plan for rats. We are overrun because of the development in our area in Alston Brighton, and to the residents to the east and to the west and to the south, it's nothing but everything people talk about. So I'd like to see you making a real big commitment. It just cost us about $15,000 to purchase and have installed trash compactors for the first time because of this issue, and the residents are really freaked out. So that's a comment I have. One to remember, this is a huge project, and Everett Street is the sort of promenade from the other end of Alston all the way to the best benefit we have, which is the river, the access to the Charles River. And so that has got to be kept open, and you possibly participating in funding to activities that happen at the river and around the neighborhood would be expected. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Would anybody else like to testify about this project, either in the boardroom or on Zoom? Madam Chair, this concludes the public hearing portion of this item.
Okay, great, thank you. We can now move on to board questions or comments. Any questions or comments from the board? I do have one question, and it's coming from some of the comments that we received. And several of them, they're referring to some, like a party deck that they're concerned about. I didn't know what the party deck is all about.
Sure, thanks, Madam Chair. If we could, there's on the slide with the floor plans, I think what they're referring to is on the top floor, the 6th floor, we have a small rooftop amenity. It's really roughly 1,000 square feet. So I know there are different terms used for a rooftop amenity, so it's certainly not intended to be a party space. But further, given the location and actually the views back into the city of Boston, it's meant to be similar to many multifamily communities to have a little space on the rooftop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just needed some context. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yeah.
When do you expect or anticipate shovels in the ground for this project, if approved here and approved through zoning?
That's a great question. Appreciate the question. We're at a point where receiving these approvals would actually be obviously be a big milestone. The actual drawings for the project would still need to be completed, financing for the project to be achieved. Our hope and our goal is that sometime prior to the end of the year, we'd be able to break ground. Again, there are many factors that play into that, but that would be our best case scenario.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett? Aye. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Okay, that concludes the public hearings. And we'll go back to item number 16. 17? 17, yes.
I'll be recusing, Madam Chair.
Okay. So Kate is, good thing I asked. Great, item number 17. Request authorization to issue an Article 80B-2.5 waiver for large project review for the Orchard Garden Apartments located at 25 Ambrose Street to convert 282 public housing units to a RAD Section 18 blend and to take all related actions. Camille.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the board, Director Shen and Secretary Paul Hemus. My name is Camille Platt, and I'm a project manager for the proposed Article 80 large project review waiver before you tonight for the Orchard Gardens redevelopment located in the Roxbury neighborhood. The project includes the rehabilitation of 288 units, with the majority of those being income restricted. The project team had a pre-filing meeting with the planning department to determine the waiving of Article 80 review on October 4th of 2024, in which all members from the planning department agreed to move forward with the waiver of large project review. Thank you for your time. We have the Madison Park Development Corporation and Trinity Financial with us this evening to present the project in further detail and to answer any questions you may have. I will now turn over to Jason McDonald to discuss the planning context. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Secretary Bohemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Jason McDonald. I'm a planner in the Planning Review team, and I'm here to actually present my project that I'm reviewing this time. Given this project is seeking an Article 80 waiver, it should be noted that the provided conditions to receive one of the endeavors focus on preserving or constructing affordable housing. The conditions being the proposed is for the rehabilitation, extension, or creation of affordable housing units, does not cause an unfavorable impact to the community, and will increase the availability or quality of affordable housing. Upon review, the project meets this criteria while also fulfilling the goals of the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan and Plan Nubian outlined to keep existing affordable housing while sustaining its quality. I will now turn over to the Madison Park Development Corporation to present. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. My name is Intia Ambrogi Saza, and I'm the Vice President of Real Estate at Madison Park Development Corporation. I'm joined by members of the team, Jonathan Bramer with Trinity Financial. We have been partners alongside Trinity Financial, the Orchard Gardens Tenant Association, and the Boston Housing Authority since the last rehabilitation of this property in 1997. And I'll hand it over to our attorney to describe the request tonight.
Thank you. Members of the board, Madam Chair, Director Shen, Secretary. My name is Carla Chaffee from Nixon Peabody, and I'm here just to represent the development team and discuss the project waiver. We're very excited to bring forth this relatively new provision of the code, Article 80B-5. As we'll demonstrate here, this project really ticks all the boxes, not only the criteria under the code, but also the intent behind this provision of the code, which was passed to allow flexibility for the redevelopment of BHA properties. You'll see the scattered site, which will be ground leased by BHA. I'd just like to point out that we're preserving 331 units, 288 of which will be income restricted. And as I mentioned, the criteria here in the code are clearly met. This project will rehabilitate and create new affordable housing. We're actually increasing the number of income-restricted units from what is existing there today. There'll be no significant impact based on the factors you consider in large project review. We're not changing the number of units. We're not increasing the size of the building. So concerns with traffic or other impacts are very low. And this is increasing the availability and quality of affordable housing in Boston. So I said I would be brief, and I'll pass it off to the development team.
You can go to the next slide. Next, sorry. Keep going. Keep going. Let's get to one of the whole site. It's there somewhere. There we go. As you can see, this is across multiple blocks, across many different building typologies. The details are provided in the slide deck, but to not spend too much time on the details, the basic typology is that there are townhouses, old typical Boston Housing Authority buildings that underwent serious renovation in 1997, and also the old Dearborn School, which used historic tax credits in the prior renovation and houses dozens of units today. From here, I will pass it over to our team member, Oren Richkin, to highlight the sustainability goals that will be achieved here.
Yeah, so could we flip back like 3, I think? Yeah, right there. So good evening, all. My name is Oren Richkin. I'm the project manager at Madison Park. One of the major components of this project is a greening of the apartments, and crucially, across all of the units, so kind of averaged out, we will achieve a 50% reduction in CO2 emissions. This is achieved primarily through new facade and updates of the current MEP systems. We can go to the next slide. Okay, yeah, so very briefly, you can see that the scope of renovations does not impact anything outside the lot lines. And the increase in affordable housing is, as we noted, we're not creating units, we're just distinguishing them as affordable. So it's purely like a administrative thing. We plan to provide facade upgrades, revitalization of common spaces, and increasing visibility to some of the units. Interior upgrades include general modernization of the flooring, kitchens, and baths. As we said, the last one was over 20 years ago. So these systems and apartments are in need of a freshening up. Can we go to the next one, please? Resident engagement and feedback. So as part of the RAD process, we held 2 formal meetings, received feedback, and have put together a feasibility study incorporating that feedback. In addition, the resident association is part of the ownership of this project, so they're highly engaged in every aspect and are kept up to date in quarterly meetings. And as part of our ongoing process and as part of the RAT process, we will continue to meet and speak with residents to take their concerns into consideration. Can we go to the next slide? I think we're on the site, so we'll go to one more. All right, we can kind of just flip through these pretty quick. So we just wanted to give you an idea. The site is technically kind of broken up a little bit, and this just kind of gives you a sense of where the blocks are. So as we said, there's townhomes. These are townhomes. Can we go to the next one? Flip it once more. So these are the like 1950s brick buildings, and then you can see C is the school building, which is historic, and we will be taking that into consideration during the renovations. Can we go to the next one? Again, just more of the site. I think the next one is a context slide. So this is the current state of the townhomes, essentially. These are elevations drawn and taken from historical plans. Can we go to the next slide? We'll show you a conceptual rendering of the exterior. You know, the facade on most of the buildings will be some sort of hardy board channeling. And so it's not entirely spec'd out, obviously, at this point in the project, but we wanted to give you an idea of what could be. Can we go to the next one? Oh, okay, we're at the end.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's move on to questions or comments from the board. Any?
Just want to mention and highlight the sustainability move. It's great. It's terrific to see. I've said this before, and I will say it because it's worth repeating. There is this false choice between striving for more affordability and making sure that we meet and exceed sustainability goals, and we cannot pit those two against one another. So that's well done, and we need to make sure, particularly in 2025, that we never lose sight of that. So I appreciate that effort.
So this site has conducted a solar study, and it's a great place to put out a lot of panels, and you can see on the sustainability column there, we've actually already been awarded funding from 3 agencies, and we're working through the diligence process with Lean right now. So it's over 20 million in funding.
Through the chair. For the existing townhouses, is that hardy board plank already applied on the exterior? No. Okay, so we'll replace
It's a reskinning of the building.
Okay, yeah. And I didn't see windows as well, or?
Windows will be considered as well as the facade, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
We'll call for a vote. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Okay. Get Kate back in here while we read item number 18. All right, item number 18. Request authorization to issue an adequacy determination pursuant to Article 80A-6.2 of the zoning code in connection with the notice of project change for the proposed construction of 117 fully affordable rental units, approximately 22,350 square feet of commercial and residential community space, 20-car parking spaces, and 118 bicycle parking spaces located at 50 Harold Street, and to issue a parcel certification of compliance and enter into an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction and execute an amendment to the cooperation agreement for the proposed project. And finally, to execute an amended or new land disposition agreement if needed. And to take all related actions, Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Shen. I'm here before you this evening to present the notice of project change for 50 Harold Street in the South End, a part of the Shawmut, Washington PDA. The project site, located on the corner of Harrison Ave and Washington Street, is currently occupied by the C-Mart grocery store. The project proposes to build 117 units of all affordable rental housing, a new grocery store, and new ground floor retail space. Additionally, as contemplated by the PDA, the project will provide parts of a new east-west and north-south connections through the PDA site, along with improved pedestrian realm along Harrison Ave and Washington Street. The development team has worked closely with our urban design staff in designing these new through-site connections to ensure that they are both safe and pleasant for all parties. Additionally, the development team has recognized the importance of the C-Mart to the local Chinatown community. As they conduct their process for finding a new tenant for the grocery space, they've been actively working with neighborhood and industry connections to identify potential tenants who will fill the same role within the neighborhood. Before I turn to the development team to take you through the project, Ford Del Vecchio from our planning review team will take you through the planning context. I'd also like to note that we received a letter of support today from the project for Councilor Flynn. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Polhemus, members of the board, and Director Shen. My name is Ford Del Vecchio, and I am the planning reviewer assigned to this project. Next slide, please. The proposed project is located in the Economic Development Area North subdistrict of the South End Neighborhood Zoning District. The site is also located in the Groundwater Conservation, Coastal Flood Resilience Overlay District, and Plan Development Area number 114 Overlay Districts. The local neighborhood plan, the Harrison Albany Corridor Strategic Plan, adopted by the BRA Board in 2011, was subsequently codified into zoning by the Boston Zoning Commission in January 2012. The neighborhood plan was created to inform land use, building form, and public realm improvements. At the time the plan was created, the area was characterized by large parcels hosting primarily commercial, industrial, and surface parking uses. The plan sought to activate this portion of the South End with a balanced mix of active, commercial, and residential uses. The proposed project aligns with the strategic plan's goals by promoting pedestrian activity through the introduction of residential and active ground floor uses. Additionally, new interstitial connections break down the large scale of the block and strengthen connections between this area, downtown, and the Chinatown neighborhood. Next slide, please. In its use and design, the proposed project is aligned with the provisions of Plan Development Area number 114, which is also derived from the Harrison Albany Strategic Plan. Of note, the provision of income-restricted housing furthers the goals of both Boston Housing Strategy 2025 and the original overlay to ensure provision of housing to an affordable range of incomes. Planning department staff work to ensure public realm improvements would be consistent with Boston Complete Street guidelines. The streetscape will be made more pedestrian-friendly by establishing a strong street edge, providing clear building entrances, and integrating service facilities from parking and loading, while maintaining vehicular access from the surrounding streets. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the development team to present the project in more detail.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam Chair, Secretary Polhemus, Director Shen. Thank you for having us. My name is Leanne Hanfield-Curtin. I am the Vice President of Development for Beacon Communities. You may be familiar with my colleagues Josh Cohn and Emily Bouton, who couldn't be here tonight. Beacon Communities, as you know, is a large-scale owner, operator, and developer of multifamily housing. We are here tonight with our partner, the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association. Beacon and CCBA have a long history together of developing housing in Boston, most recently at Polk Oy, formerly known as 288 Harrison, currently under construction. And so we are here tonight to revisit this project that you've heard a lot about at 50 Harold Street in the South End. I'm also here with my design team, who will take you through a brief presentation as we seek final approval. And finally, I just want to thank the BPDA staff for pushing us on this project, for helping us along this process and making it a better project. We're excited to bring it to fruition, and I will turn it over to my architect. Oh, to CCBA first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felix Lui. I'm the president of CCBA. We joined with me is my colleague Ed Chang. CCBA is a nonprofit organization representing 33 organizations with us. And our aim is to serve the Chinese minorities. And also we were trying to build some affordable housing, just as Bacon just mentioned about. We almost finished a building next to Taitung Village called Port Oil Building. CCBA acquired this site 1980 through an agreement with Tufts and the New England Medical Center. We intend to build affordable housing. We've been take us 40 years to get to this point. We are looking forward to increase Chinatown housing supply, allowing working family and young people to live here, and preserving an Asian grocery store as a local amenity and job center. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for sticking with us tonight. I think we might be closing out the floor. My name is Erin Hodges. I'm a design principal at Stantec Architecture, and I'm here with my colleague Rick Kentner, the project manager, and Terry Kinsler from Offshoots, who's our landscape designer. Next page, please. This is the concept of our project. It is an ancient Chinese prose written more than 1,000 years ago about a fisherman paddling upstream and discovered a secret cherry blossom village, peach blossom village. And the story depicts this very tranquil a village of people who ran away from chaos of time and found a home for themselves and has been extremely self-sufficient and resourceful. And that story echoed with us really well when we were looking at the missions and visions of our client and trying to find a message that will be long-lasting and empower the residents who will be living in this building. Next page. A little bit more on the site context. You've heard that this was a previous approved PDA with 3 different buildings on this lot that's bounded by Washington, Shawmut, and Harold. 100 Shawmut has been built for a couple years now, and we're the second building in. Next page. This was the previous approved PDA envelope. It was approved as a 150 feet tall, almost 8 FAR with 313 units. The strength of this PDA plan was, first of all, providing new housing, but the through block connection with the center block oasis that the pedestrian can access amongst the cacophony of busy traffic and urban environment is something that we really echoed with and inspired by. Next page. So this is the updated design. We actually decided to lower the density quite a bit, and instead of market rate, we are proposing a lower density, 100% affordable housing. The diagram of the building on the left, it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll walk you through it. We shaped this building to hug the gentle curve of Washington Street and lower the height to 7 stories so that there is this variation of height difference on the block and freed up this glass wall as you're driving on the highway. And we thought that's one of the strengths of the updated design. And in addition, we created moments on the major facade that that signifies the major entrances. So the corner at Washington and Herald is the entrance to the residential, and a secondary cut, that's the entrance to the grocery store and commercial space. And quick stats, 85 feet and 117 affordable units. Next, please. The site plan here depicts the access points in the blue arrows. And you can already see that the ground floor is quite permeable and has access points around the entire perimeter. So walking around the site in detail, I'll give Terry the opportunity to walk along the site in terms of landscape, but I'll walk you through the program on the ground floor. On the bottom right corner of the building will be the residential entrance. And as you enter the lobby, there will be a set of glass partitions that takes you to a community room. And as you come to the end of the community room, instead of a wall, it's actually another wall of glass that takes you beyond to the courtyard. That's where the left to right side through block connection is happening that takes people to the courtyard that's hidden. And right there, you can already tell the experience of the residents and the visitors to the site. What they're experiencing is a sense of joyful discovery as they enter the building, seeing the layers of the spaces, seeing the layers of the landscape until when they reach the hidden village, the hidden space in the middle of the site. And around the other perimeter, as you come around Washington Street, there's the main entrance to the grocery store, which is below grade because we want to prioritize dedicating a full floor below grade to the grocery store. And with working really closely with the community, we heard that parking is a priority, especially to support a grocery store. So we moved from 0 parking at the start of the design to providing 20 parking spaces behind the active street front of commercial space, which is what you're seeing wrapping around the Washington Street perimeter. There's only one curb cut to the site that will take vehicular traffic into the parking garage and the loading traffic towards the back of the building. And Terry, do you want to jump in here?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to pick up where Aaron kind of left off. So we're in the page left side where there is going to be the vehicular access. We actually, with BPDA's staff's help, we were able to put a raised curb on the left side to create a more safe pedestrian connection. Page up and down. Within that is also the loading and parking access so that all cars and trucks can avoid the raised curb going in and out of the building. This brings us to the top left of the page where we would have a sloped walk connecting over to the existing site, existing courtyard. We are backdropping that existing courtyard with healthy and robust planting that would also be a buffer between the courtyard and the first floor parking. And that's going to provide a courtyard with a much more green edge to it. There's visitor bike parking just off of the residential courtyard that's really going to help activate that space. Also provide a windbreak and then also obscure the view looking over the highway from this courtyard. Wrapping around, we are proposing 3 new street trees along Herald, as well as additional bike parking. And there will be a bus stop to be revitalized on Herald Street, and then throughout this whole process, we're going to keep the Silver Line station as is, as well as preserve the 3 existing street trees on Washington and propose 1 more adjacent to the 19 blue bike station. I'm going to turn it over to Egbert.
Thank you. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So to occupy and run this basement commercial grocery space and also potentially the ground floor space along Washington Street, we are running a transparent, fair, and open RFP process to select a qualified Asian grocery operator to fulfill this obligation. We're actively soliciting requests for qualifications from local and regional Asian markets, 7 local and 8 regional, to submit proposals. And CMART, of course, is invited as one of the contenders to return. Thank you.
And to close it out, we have a few renderings of the exterior. This you've seen. The facade is predominantly brick with moments of metal. And as you go around the Harold Street facade next page, this is where you see the entrance to the courtyard with the brick facade in the foreground and the community room glass on the bottom right corner of the building. Next page, as you enter the courtyard, this is the line of planting that Terry mentioned with seating and activity. And the next page, to close it out, this is a view looking back at the building on Washington Street. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, questions or comments from the board?
Well, I'm a broken record, but it bears repeating. All affordable with net zero carbon, well done. That is, it's so important, not only for our emissions reduction standards, but you think about clean air and all the benefits that will come to make sure that we continue to build like this. So terrific work, well done to your team.
Yeah, what he said.
What they said, and also I just want to thank you and your organization. You mentioned, it's been a 40-year journey, and thanks for playing the long game with us, and I think that it really landed with me and inspired me. And I'm just very, very appreciative of all of the community members and developers, everybody at the agency for, understanding that this is, one step at a time, and everybody kind of takes their lap. And I just appreciate that. With that, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Take care. That's a good one. Okay, item number 19. 1 second. Okay, item number 19. Request authorization to enter into an affordable housing agreement for the proposed creation of 2 IDP homeownership units located at 370 Vermont Street, also known as 419 through 421 Baker Street, and to take all related actions. Andy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Shen, Secretary Polhemus, and members of the board. I'm Andy Feldman, Housing Policy Manager with the Mayor's Office of Housing. Tonight, I'm here to request your vote on an affordable housing agreement for the proposed development at 370 Vermont Street in West Roxbury, also known as 419 to 421 Baker Street. This development proposes to build 14 condo units, and while it didn't trigger Article 80 due to its size, the inclusionary development policy applies to the project as it's 10 or more units. Therefore, the vote in front of you tonight will allow the agency to enter an agreement to dedicate 2 units under the inclusionary development policy. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Item number 2, personnel. Secretary Polhemus.
I have one item for your consideration this evening. We have one resignation in the administration department, Susan Malone, Senior Administrative Services Manager. And I just would note, in the last week, we lost a total of 120 years' worth of service to this agency with 3 retirements.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Susan, and thank you to to all of the members of the agency that retired, again, kind of building off of that last comment of just people committing themselves for such a long time to the betterment of Boston and its residents. And it's just, it's super moving, and I'm thankful for all of everyone's service. Do we have any questions or comments from the board on this? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 23, contractual. I need a motion to pay the bills.
I move that we pay our bills.
I second that move.
Okay, roll call for a vote. We'll see how it turns out. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Please pay the bills. And finally, director's update. Chief Shen, the floor is yours.
Happy New Year. I know this might be a little bit late to greet you, but thank you, board members, for your service. And to summarize what we did today, which is that we've approved 6 new projects, 850,000 square foot, of which 67% of that building square footage will be residential. That will produce 577 new residential units, of which 43.5% will be income restricted. Now, I noticed very much that there were some projects that were completely affordable, including the last one on Herald Street. This amounts to $471 million worth of investment, and will create 750 construction jobs in the trades, and then some additional permanent jobs, 50 of them direct, and over 370 some that will be indirect jobs. Now, since it's the new year, I want to just look ahead a little bit to show you what our staff are going to devote their time to, mostly working with the community. First of all, you know that we've been working on Article 80 modernization. We're getting to the phase where the staff have been working internally. There's been a set of recommendations that we've received public commentary, and that the staff will be putting together a kind of recommendation to you on how we will implement some of these changes, hopefully in the next month or two. You are all aware of the work that we've been doing on the residential housing, neighborhood housing zoning changes, which the highlight item, of course, is the ADUs. But the ADUs will not only just be about adding additional units. We will clean up the code so that actually it will make normal kind of regular alterations that are not, conforming to the current code much more easier for homeowners. Of course, another big project that is ongoing is Squares and Streets. In particular, we're doing a lot of work in Roslindale, and that we hope to codify the Cleary Square zoning, Squares and Streets zoning soon. There's also a citywide needs assessment that our planning staff will be conducting. And the most important thing is to really understand, based on the growth trends of our city, what are the real needs that each of the neighborhood would have. So that will actually provide the foundation and data for us to do proactive planning, which is the goal and mandate that this mayor set for us for the planning department. And of course, this would also be really important in terms of thinking about equitable growth, which is that what neighborhoods have the capacity to absorb the needs that we've identified. Of course, the other thing, which is that we've been working on, is downtown and Chinatown zoning. We expect that, again, both of these draft zoning articles are out for public comment. We are about to close those public comment period, so I expect that in the next 2 board meetings that we'll bring the zoning in front of you. I just want to provide a little highlight of some of the projects that we saw today. I have to say that this is my 3rd board meeting, and Drexel Village, which is the project right on Melnea Cass, is the first project that I've seen every member make a comment, and really excited about that. I expect that this is hopefully a new trend that we will set. It's of course a project that is incorporating some private land as well as public parcels, which I think counts as a kind of public-private partnership. It's 217 units, of which 85% is affordable. So something, a kind of achievement level in terms of income-restricted units that we would like to continue to promote. It also provides a lot of local benefits, including on-site daycare, and of course the renovation of St. Catherine's Drexel Church, which will be part of, I think it was told that it was going to be the third phase. And then 250 Everett Street, which is 270 units and is consistent with the Western Avenue corridor study and rezoning that we've been doing. I want to end by just saying that 101 Tremont Street by Suffolk University, I think it's a great project. It's a new version of the office to residential conversion. I think it's going to be potentially a model for bringing the institutions that desperately need housing, not just dormitories, but we are thinking some institutions have already raised a concern about housing for their staff and workers. So we are actually actively working with some institutions, some of the smaller institutions, to actually create a kind of consortium for them to actually, and then partner them with developers to actually do more of this kind of office to residential conversion. I have some news to share. Unfortunately, Amy Chambers, our Director of Planning, has decided to leave, and I want to take this opportunity to thank her. And I wanted to also to acknowledge that she came to Boston just about 2 years ago, and her charge was to launch the citywide zoning reform and put Boston on a path of coherent, modern zoning code that works for residents, our development community, and our staff. And she has, I think, in the 2 years, delivered incredibly dramatic change that will shape our city for years to come. She saw, in that short time, she also oversaw 5 neighborhood plans, and she delivered the Austin, and she's already started and will deliver the Austin Brighton Needs Assessment. She's managed the development of the ADU guidebook that will continue to bear fruit. Some other important citywide initiatives, which is childcare zoning, a new use table. My goodness, you know, the use table, I mean, I'm so glad that Amy took on the challenge. And the squares and street zoning, which she created the foundational districts that we are now we're going to apply to each of the different neighborhoods. And then, of course, adopting a new development standard through inclusionary zoning, linkage, and net zero carbon, which we will go to the Zoning Commission on January 29th. Another thing that doesn't get the headlines is that Amy also reshaped the Planning and Zoning Division to better position the work of her employees within the new planning department. And many of you have, of course, have served on the board before Amy came, where now the protocol of having planners actually provide the planning context was done under her leadership. I'm extremely grateful to you, Amy. And you did more in 2 years than I was able to do in my 13 years as planning director. So I know that you have a great future ahead of you, and I want to thank you and acknowledge all your contributions. So thank you. That ends my report.
Yes. Well, if a standing ovation was appropriate, I would do that. Just on behalf of the board, Amy, I hope that whatever you do next, before you do that, that you have some rest. And not just because, like, oh my gosh, how did you do all that stuff in 2 years? But for us to like reflect on all that you've done in 2 years and all that you've kind of been a catalyst for. And one of the things that I think you have a really great ability to do is to build a team and to build a strong team and to put your team first and really be invested in your team members and in their development and the opportunities that you gave them are just amazing, whether they realize it or not. You've had your hand in building some very strong professionals, and while we definitely are sad to see you leave, I am confident in the department that you've built and in the leaders that you have grown. And I just hope you walk away from this experience knowing how incredible that you are. And and we appreciate you. Okay? So cool. All right. With that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. O'Malley?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you all next month.